West Yorkshire, it's been an absolute privilege to be mayor. We have got an absolutely packed agenda today, reflective of the effort that we've all put in over the last 3 years. An awful lot of hard work has been put into preparing the decisions we have in front of us on bus reform, mass transit, and the proposals for a Better Homes Hub. These are decisions that are not made overnight, but the culmination of months of commitment from colleagues around this table, colleagues working in the Combined Authority and in our partner authorities. Can I thank you all personally for the efforts you've made to get us where we are today? Of course, the decisions in front of us are not the only achievements of the last 3 years. We've built thousands of affordable homes, more over the last 2 years than any equivalent 2 years since the economic crash in 2010. We've invested in new bus stations, in new bus routes, and in cheaper fares. We've secured more than 1,000 new green jobs from businesses for young people, trained 90,000 adults across our skills programmes, backed businesses and entrepreneurs across the region to succeed by investing in support programmes, put safety at the heart of my police and crime plan, and recruited over 800 new police officers and staff. I could go on, but you can see from the packed agenda we've got a lot to get through today. But our success has not gone unnoticed. I was delighted that the Secretary of State for Levelling Up confirmed at the Convention of the North that we're eligible for further devolution through a Level 4 devolution deal, which will see amongst the region get further funding and powers over housing, regeneration, skills and transport, amongst other things. The Secretary of State confirmed this in a letter which has been shared with all our Combined Authority members and says that the government has confidence in our capacity, governance and culture as an institution, and that we are one of the country's most mature, devolved institutions. After just 3 years as a mayoral Combined Authority, standing on the shoulders of success of the LEP and the Combined Authority before 2021, I think that is an achievement we can all be hugely proud of. And on that note, I think we should progress with the formal items on the agenda. Thank you so much. So, Miles, any apologies, please?
Apologies for absence, Mayor, have been received from Councillor Denise Jeffrey and Councillor Jane Scullion.
Lovely, thank you. And may I welcome Councillor Anderson, for the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, to join us at this meeting today. Thank you. Item 2, any declarations of interest that the members wish to declare? Thank you. None. Okay, item 3, exclusion of press and public. Officers have advised that the information contained in Appendix 9 to Agenda Item 13D, Zero Emission Bus Regional Area, ZEBRA, is treated as exempt under the paragraph 3 of Part 1 to Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as it contains information relating to financial or business affairs of a particular person, including the Combined Authority, and further that it's considered the public interest in maintaining the content of the appendix as exempt outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information, as publication could prejudice current and future decision making. If we agree, the press and public will be excluded should members wish to discuss the content of the appendix when we consider item 13D. Are we content to agree the recommendation that the information is exempt? We are content. Thank you all so much. So, item 4, minutes of the 1st of February 2024. Turning to these minutes, are there any comments or questions? Are we content to confirm these as an accurate record? We are. Thank you. Moving on to item 5. This is for decision, bus reform. This paper is for consideration by all of us around this table. It addresses crucial matters regarding the future of our region's buses and proposes significant steps to address existing and long-term challenges facing the system. Buses are a vital service for our communities, relied on by people to get to work, education, the hospital, or just simply to visit family and friends and enjoy everything that our region has to offer. But we know the current system is not good enough. We hear it from the public all the time, and as politicians, I think I speak for all of us, it can be frustrating trying to help with the limited ability we have currently to deliver the change that people want to see. When I was elected mayor in 2021, I pledge to bring buses back under public control, introduce simpler fares, contactless ticketing and greener buses. And this paper reflects that ambition as well as looking to deliver improvements for the travelling public as soon as possible. I knew we needed wider fundamental change to the way buses are run in West Yorkshire. That's why, as a combined authority, we issued a notice of intent to establish an enhanced partnership with local bus operators and conduct an assessment of franchising. This paper is the product of 2 years of detailed work, following the legal process, looking at the options for bus reform, including most recently a statutory consultation with key stakeholders and the public at large. The outcomes of this consultation on bus reform have been analysed independently, and then a response report produced by the Combined Authority officers. Today, we are asked to consider the content of that report in making a decision on what we do next. Now, before we consider the detail of this matter, can I ask Caroline Allen, the Deputy Director for Legal Governance and Compliance, to highlight any procedural issues and outline the decision-making process that applies in relation to this item. Caroline.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, there's a couple of minor procedural matters to bring to members' attention. The first one is in relation to an addendum that's been published to the papers, and this relates to, following the publication of the agenda, a minor error has been identified in the published DJS report, research report, which forms part of the appendices to the bus reform item. Now, this report presents a full independent summary of the consultation undertaken, and in brief, the report incorrectly referenced a Leeds City Council member's response as the statutory response for Leeds City Council, and a reference within the elected representatives section of the report referenced Calderdale Metropolitan Borough Council rather than a councillor for Calderdale Metropolitan Borough Council. So those errors, minor as they are, have been corrected, and an addendum to that report produced, published on the website and circulated to all CA members in advance of this meeting. The key thing, however, is that the correction of these errors has no impact upon the analysis undertaken by the authority to consider the consultation responses submitted by either the councillors or authorities referred to, or therefore the conclusions and recommendations in the Combined Authority report. For assurance, our full consultation response at Appendix 2 has correctly included the full Leeds City Council statutory response within its analysis, published this in full between pages 873 and 928, and the incorrect reference to Calderdale Metropolitan Borough Council did not affect the treatment of that response from the councillor or the councillor, as this was already listed in the elected representative section. So I mentioned that for the purposes of the minutes and for completeness. The second point is a minor typographical error in the recommendations to the report today. At 10.1.5 and 10.1.6, the first bullet point at each, both recommendations cross-reference to the mobilisation section of the report for noting, which is correct, but erroneously reference this as section 0 when it should reference section 2.140 to 2.150. So I mentioned those for clarification, Mayor. So perhaps, unless anyone has any questions on those points of clarification, I can turn now to outline the decision-making process which relates to this item.
Please do, thank you.
Thank you. So item 5 presents a report and appendices for consideration by members of the Combined Authority, together with a set of recommendations to the Combined Authority at section 10 of the report. Following a presentation of the report and debate and questions in the usual manner, all Combined Authority members, with the exception of York as a non-voting, non-constituent council member, will be asked to consider the recommendations and vote in the usual manner. And at that point, it's proposed that I will take us through those recommendations one by one. Following that, and as members are aware, in accordance with the legislation, the function of deciding whether to make a franchising scheme is a function of the Combined Authority exercisable only by the Mayor acting on behalf of the Combined Authority. So, following the resolutions of the Combined Authority, including any recommendations made to the Mayor will then consider, in the light of all the evidence, whether to exercise her decision-making authority to make a franchising scheme for West Yorkshire, and will make her decision and advise the meeting of that, which will be recorded in the minutes. I hope that's helpful. Again, if there are any questions on the procedure, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions on procedure? No? Thank you. May I move over to Simon Warburton to talk us through this paper, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And if I may, I'd just like to spend a few minutes summarising the content of the report and its appendices, which are citable in nature. So, as members will recall, the Combined Authority has been undertaking an assessment of a case for bus franchising under the provisions of the Bus Services Act. At its meeting in May of last year, the Combined Authority received a draft of that assessment and approved the assessment to be audited in accordance with the provisions in the Act. And that audited assessment was then brought to the September meeting of the Combined Authority, where it was agreed that we would undertake a statutory consultation with a commitment to report the findings of the consultation back to this meeting. And that this is the main purpose of the report today, is to set out very clearly what we have heard through the consultation and whether that in any way materially changes our previous recommendations to the Combined Authority. The consultation ran from October 2023 to January 2024, and it looked to focus on two key audiences. Firstly, under the Act, there are a series of statutory consultees that we are required to consult with. We've set the list out here in paragraph 2.18, and we were successful in engaging with those statutory consultees. But also, members have been very clear throughout that you have sought to see us consult widely with the general public, and we've set out at 2.19 the range of activities that were undertaken by the team to ensure that we had publicised the consultation as widely as possible. The consultation response has been summarised by an external agency, DJS Research, and a member of the management team from DGS is available at the meeting should members so require. We received in total 69 stakeholder organisation responses and a total of 1,176 responses from the members of the public, and we have set out a demographic breakdown of the respondents within the report. Furthermore, the Combined Authority also received a further 2,778 campaign responses and the conclusion of an ongoing petition, which I should stress started before the consultation, containing 12,182 responses. We've set out in Table 1 the breadth of response that was received to the central question around whether respondents supported or opposed the proposed franchising scheme, and members will see that 82% either supported or supported in part the proposal for a franchising scheme as set out in the consultation document. The consultation document then sought views on each of the 5 parts of the assessment set out in a traditional 5-part business case. And I'm now just going to talk members through our conclusions against the consultation in each of these parts. So firstly, the assessment started with a strategic case, and we've set out exhaustively in the attached consultation response report, and then summarised in the paragraphs in the cover report here the specific comments that were raised. And when considering the responses to the consultation, both in terms of support for and challenges to the strategic case, we believe the evidence presented in the strategic case responds to the challenges facing the bus industry, and that is reflected in a coherent set of objectives. There was broad support in the consultation for the need for reform, and particular challenges were made in the consultation responses to highlight the importance of bus priority, fares and ticketing, as well as customer service and information. And so, as we have considered all of the content within the consultation responses, we are satisfied as officers to recommend that the strategic case continues to address the themes that have been raised through the consultation appropriately, and that the objectives for our bus system and the proposals across both models are reaffirmed through the consultation. The second stage of the case is the economic case, and a wide variety of different comments and concerns were raised in connection with the economic case. Some of the issues particularly raised in the consultation response were raised by First West Yorkshire, but also by other bus operators, and we've set out in great technical detail in Appendix 5 to the consultation response report our handling of those issues, and I can advise members that through the consultation period with First West Yorkshire in particular, myself and the team had a number of specific formal meetings to explore fully all of the issues that were raised by First West Yorkshire and their economic advisors. And as a result of that engagement, which, as I say, we've set out fully in the full report, we are confident that the findings of our economic case remain robust, that both options represent very high value for money, for the very simple reason that both options offer benefits to the travelling public, but that the benefits of franchising are greater when we compare the two options. The third part of the case refers to the commercial case, and again a number of issues raised, particularly very helpfully to test and challenge further our approach to risk management. And I should stress that there is an important element within this consultation whereby a number of specific issues, particularly relating to the management case and the commercial case, are aspects that we will continue to work on should a decision be taken later in this meeting for us to pursue franchising. And so we remain confident that from a commercial perspective, either of the bus reforms options are deliverable. We maintain the view that the critical success factors can be better met with the proposed franchising scheme due to the control and certainty that it would provide over outcomes across the bus network. However, specific comments provided in relation to the details of contracting, the approach to asset acquisition, the approach to cross-boundary services, to facilitating small and medium size operator participation, and the final allocation of routes through the lotting strategy would be taken on board should a decision be taken to introduce a franchising scheme, thereby further demonstrating the value of the consultation process. Fourth part of our assessment addressed the financial case, and we do recognise that a number of consultees raised concerns over future sources of funding and finance, and whilst we have considered, and indeed public authorities always need to consider, levels of uncertainty, we still believe that there is a valid assumption for us to pursue the franchising scheme. As highlighted in the assessment's financial case conclusions, the combined authority would carry more financial risks, both in terms of carrying cost and revenue risks, and more asset risk. And these concerns are recognised, but consideration of these points has not altered our view and our advice to the combined authority that the franchising scheme remains affordable within available budgets, and under different scenarios that we have assessed, that remains the case. The final part of our five-part case addresses the management case, and again, very helpful points raised in terms of deployment of activities, and also the management of risk. We have also had raised with us the need for us to continue to set out in greater detail, should a decision be taken to pursue franchising, the application in particular of TUPE processes as provided for in law, and we take that responsibility very seriously. Nonetheless, we are confident that the consultation has given a good challenge and stress test to our management case, and that the management case for either option continues to stand. And indeed, at the end of this report, once members have formally considered options, we have also set out the immediate steps that we would take under either scenario to ensure that that management case is pursued in a rapid fashion immediately following any decision. We have then summarised a series of further points that have been raised through the consultation, and I think in particular I would raise three aspects that we've sought to further address in considering the responses. In particular, we have made appropriate changes to the proposed franchising scheme on the back of the consultation to address two issues in particular. One, the services to be franchised. Quite rightly, the consultation raised that the network has changed since the initial assessment period of 2021. Now is the appropriate stage for us to amend the proposed franchising scheme so that it reflects current origin and destination pairs that are provided for through the current network, and so we have made that adjustment at this stage. Secondly, we have also taken on board very pragmatic suggestions in terms of the dates at which franchise contracts would commence should a decision be taken to do so, so that they align with periods between school terms and provide the opportunity to minimise any issues that would otherwise be brought there, and that's very helpful advice. The final very important point that we will continue to work very hard on should a decision be taken to pursue the proposed franchising scheme is around the treatment of small and medium-sized operators. We recognise that they are an incredibly important part of the economic mix within West Yorkshire, and we've set out an additional report in the appendices to this report to ensure that we set out from the outset how we would go about safeguarding the role of small and medium-sized businesses through this process. Mayor, having considered the consultation feedback carefully, including a range of risks raised by consultees, our consultation response concludes that the proposed franchising scheme would be deliverable by the combined authority. It is very clear from the consultation received that the local bus network plays a vital role in West Yorkshire and is strategically important for its future development, as well as the day-to-day lives of residents who depend on it to travel to work and education, access other vital services, and to enjoy leisure and cultural opportunities across the region. However, buses in West Yorkshire face many challenges which justify significant action to overcome, including the currently predicted long-term decline in use and shrinking network, which is judged as an unacceptable outcome by many who responded to our consultation. Our work has demonstrated to us that franchising provides the greatest levels of control and direct influence to respond to this above and beyond the Enhanced Partnership Plus, and is therefore recommended to you as the preferred option to achieve the change needed. So based on the content set out throughout, the consultation response reaffirms the assessment's conclusion and recommends to the Mayor that the combined authority proceed with the proposed franchising scheme as the preferred option for bus reform in West Yorkshire.
Thank you so much for that thorough description of the work that's gone ahead. Thank you so much. So we have about 20 minutes for questions. I'm sure members will have many questions they want to raise. Could I encourage people to be pithy, and may I, Simon, also ask for responses to be pithy? Thank you so much. We have a lot to get through today. Who would like to start with questions? Yes, Sylvia and then Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. So some consultees responded to the consultation with concerns about cross-boundary services going forward and how they would be considered. I represent Todmorden, which is an area of Calderdale which has very important cross-boundary services. What reassurances are there about those?
Thank you. And this is an important issue that was raised through the consultation, and we recognise that West Yorkshire is not an island. The unfranchising services outside West Yorkshire cannot form part of the franchising scheme, as it can only apply in West Yorkshire. But clearly, cross-boundary services would still be able to operate. And so what we have proposed within our scheme is a service permit regime which allows the combined authority to ensure integration between cross-boundary and franchised services. It's not intended that this permit scheme would in any way be onerous, and it is now an approach which has been tried and tested under the Greater Manchester model, and we're very satisfied that it will help to address those issues that are quite rightly raised by the councillor.
Thank you, Simon. I'm going to take two questions at a time, as there's lots of people who want to ask questions. So Kathy, then Susan. Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. Finances are crucial. Please can you reassure the authority as to the costs involved in how they will be covered?
And Susan?
Just looking at 2.32, obviously it says some respondents challenged the objectives around a target for patronage growth and doubts about whether we could achieve this through a franchising scheme. Obviously our ambition is to increase patronage. I'd just like a bit of feedback on that. And obviously the 2.5 says about the risk in the economic case. A number of respondents are saying there's possible risks. You know, how confident are we that those risks can be managed financially? Thank you.
Simon.
Thank you. So firstly, with regard to cost, we set out very clearly in the report the cost that would be involved in both models. So under the franchising proposition, an initial one-off investment by the combined authority of £20.4 million over 4 years would allow us to put in place the necessary management and contract governance arrangements, including new back office systems to manage the period through to transition. In addition to that, we have set out a minimum in the first instance capital investment that would be required in depots. We've estimated that at £85.5 million. That reflects the proposed commercial approach whereby we would look to acquire the largest depots in West Yorkshire, thereby removing those depots as a barrier to competition within a franchising approach. I should stress that both of those spending activities would deliver both intellectual property and, in the case of the depots, physical assets to the benefits of the combined authority.
Thank you, very helpful. So I have Matthew, then Councillor Lamb. Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. I've read the comments and concerns regarding small operators. Obviously, we've got some fantastic small operators around the district. I think of Ross Travel in the 5 towns that have provided some really good services. What opportunities are they going to be under this new model of the franchising?
Thank you. And Councillor Lamb?
I've got quite a few questions. Do you want me to go all in one or come back to them?
How many questions do you have, Councillor Lamb?
5.
Why not split them? Just take 2 at a time.
Okay. Well, one of them follows on around small operators. So if I take that one, we've seen in Manchester that the small operators have gone already, and I've had small operators express concern to me that really the practical means of helping them is to give long certainty quickly so that they can actually decide whether to invest or not. Otherwise, they've got no choice but to pretty much pack in. So again, some further reassurance on that would be useful, because the consequence of them dropping out of the market in Manchester is the costs have gone up substantially from what was originally proposed. And so can you give us some reassurance that's not going to happen here? So I'll leave it to that one because they're on the same.
Oh, okay. So your first 2 were following on. Okay, thank you, Simon.
Thank you. So yes, the impact on small operators we recognise is an absolutely critical consideration, and therefore we have looked to learn the lessons from elsewhere, particularly from Greater Manchester. So the approach that we've set out in Appendix 5 is intended to bring forward a model of smaller size contracts within each zone that would be more suitable to the operations of small operators. I think the point around a longer term certainty is also something that I've heard through the consultation from small operators. The length of the proposed franchises that we are proposing would actually provide a model of certainty for the market. So whilst there is a competitive process that small operators would need to take themselves through, and again from Greater Manchester we are looking to learn lessons in terms of how we ensure that there are appropriate levels of administration that's required according to the size of different contracts. That final position of having certainty over the operation of a route for the medium term is actually a position for a small operator which they can't necessarily guarantee under any other model.
Thank you so much. I'll come back round to you. Let's get some... Have you got a follow-up from that? Okay, go ahead.
I'm a bit concerned with trying to squeeze this into 20 minutes.
It's tricky.
It's a massive issue.
It's
not down to us that the agenda's so big today.
It is a challenge prior to the election, yes.
It is, but
Please go ahead,
yeah, it's
Councillor.
important we get these issues in. So, to be fair, you've missed the point that the small operators have made. The issue is the transition from now until franchising starts and how they have certainty in that period. Because for the small operators, that's where they're going. That's when they're going to fail. Having certainty once the franchising is in place, that's fine. The bit they need certainty is what happens in the meantime. How do they make investment decisions? If you own 3 or 4 buses and one needs replacing and you don't have certainty, you're not going to replace it.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, I do apologise. I should have picked up on that point. So, should a decision be taken, we would then start to develop with operators a model for the residual value management of fleet. That should provide us with a mechanism to manage our way through the transition, recognising that even if that operator were to find themselves in an unsuccessful position through competition in franchising, that in most cases, subject to fleet meeting appropriate standards, we would be keen to retain the fleet in West Yorkshire. So one of the early activities that I would be instructing the team to undertake with the operator community as a whole is to start to develop that residual fleet model, which should then give the necessary confidence to the market through that transition period.
Thank you. Ben, you wanted to come in on this point?
Mayor, thank you. Just to build on the points that Simon's made about small operators, which absolutely are critical in our thinking around this. It's worth bearing in mind for context that most of the small operator contracts form part of the tender service network anyway. So we have that we're better able to help manage that process through in the way that Simon has said, and also as you see from the implementation case in the work, these contracts will be phased in this if taken forward, and so therefore it's not as if the whole of the small and medium market will be up for grabs in one go. So there'll be a phasing process across West Yorkshire if we proceed down this route.
Thank you. And Councillor Lamb, I will come back to you for your other questions. So Claire, Councillor Douglas and Mandy.
Thank you. She's going back to the cross-border issue and representing York. There are other inter-local authority, combined authority cross-borders. Can you just give us some reassurance or further information on how that might work to ensure that economic transition from one to another is maintained?
Thank you. And Mandy.
My question was about small operators, so I think it's almost that we look at how we make it easier to encourage small operators rather than discourage them, because they help us with markets that we wouldn't otherwise address.
Thank you. Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. So, firstly, with regard to cross-boundary, so within our management model, should we pursue franchising, one aspect that we have emphasised is joint working with partners in our neighbouring authorities. We want to be able to keep very close to any changes in market conditions that might present themselves through a transition period, so that we can work closely with our partners in local authorities to address those. As the reports later in the agenda demonstrate, there's such a strong linkage in travel to work areas in particular between North Yorkshire and West Yorkshire that it's absolutely crucial that we stay very close through that period, and I can guarantee that we would dedicate resources to that end.
Thank you. And just on Mandy's point, do you feel that's been addressed?
Apologies. So with regard to transition, again, looking to make use of the residual value fleet model, and also looking to make use of the depot model. What we are looking to do there is to remove as many barriers to entry into competition as possible. So I think it's very important to emphasise that a franchising model is a commercial model. It is not a model whereby public delivery is involved at all, and we want to be able to encourage, should the decision be taken, the most vibrant competition for any franchise that we bring to the market, because it's through that mechanism that we can best guarantee value for money.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to Councillor Galton, Councillor Poulsen. Councillor Galton.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to cover the enhanced bus partnership, if that's okay. So one of the options that's on the table today is the enhanced bus partnership plus, which has been put forward by the bus operators. I think the frustration for many people in West Yorkshire, as well as the politicians around this table, is the fact that the current enhanced bus partnership hasn't delivered any improvement in services whatsoever. And I think we're going to be judging whether an enhanced bus partnership plus is going to deliver those advantages based on that performance, aren't we? But in the past 3 years, we've had the worst reliability of services, a reduction in frequency on most routes, an actual reduction of routes, and the longest period of industrial unrest that we've seen in our region. So the record isn't great for the enhanced bus partnership, and that implies that the balance of power within that partnership isn't equal, and at the moment the operators have got the upper hand. So going forward, if we do choose to have bus franchising as our preference, and it's going to take a long while to pursue, how are we going to ensure that the bus partnership, which is there already and will exist during that period, actually will be able to tackle more effectively the key concerns of the bus riding public around reliability, frequency, the real-time bus information, the pressure from disabled passengers that they want to have more concessionary fare availability, all of those things. How are we going to address that so that performance doesn't get even worse while we're negotiating the franchising?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Poulsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine sort of focus on the risk, really, that's in the report, on two areas. One is, it doesn't seem to mention anything about a potential legal challenge to the proposal. I know in other parts of the country there was many years of legal battles at extremely high costs. There's nothing in here about that as a risk, and I think that is a key risk that going down this route would put, obviously, to the combined authority and to taxpayers. And also, we've just been mentioning the Enhanced Partnership Plus. Looking in here, the risk really of not doing that first, that is a lot cheaper and would be a lot quicker to improve things for our users now, rather than in many years. We're looking at hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money if we go straight onto the franchising. And there is a huge risk to taxpayers who would ultimately be funding this. So really, questions over the risk of the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poulsen. Simon.
Thank you, Mayor. So Councillor Galton raises some very important points in terms of the performance of the bus network at present, and it was regrettable to see the latest Transport Focus report, which placed our local operators at a very low level in comparison to other areas with regard to bus passenger satisfaction, and we do take that very seriously. We will continue to, under any decision that is taken today, we will continue in the near term to deploy the bus services improvement plan that you have already agreed. We've continued to work with government to secure additional resources under the BSIP regime so that we are able to carry forward, certainly for the time being, key initiatives such as the Mayor's Fairs, such as the Superbus initiatives, and the wider tactical interventions into the network that we've been bringing forward with the support of the Transport Committee. Within our capital programme, we also have provision for the continued rollout of the real-time passenger information system, and that will continue regardless. And we have a specific work stream underway with operators at present to address the ghost bus issues within that model, which holds back what is otherwise the largest real-time passenger information system in the country outside London. We are significantly ahead of other places, including a place that I used to work towards in that regard. We are investing heavily at the moment in our bus stations through the capital programme, and that will serve to improve the passenger experience in a number of our key centres, addressing the needs of our most vulnerable users through the deployment of the new PCSO model, and continuing to work closely with operators on that front. And of course, in the capital programme today, there are a series of bus hotspots as well that we're seeking to address to continue to improve performance on the road. So my message back to members is we will use every tool that's available to us in the near term, regardless of the decisions that are taken today, to continue to look to turn around those perceptions of the bus offer, which are hugely regrettable, because from perception follows demand, and therefore it's absolutely critical that we use the evidence that's available to us to drive performance up. With regard to the risk register, we have just double checked that we do address the legal challenge in there, and in instigating the project at the outset, the Combined Authority did set aside a specific reserve to handle legal challenge should that present itself. So yeah, we do have that within our management case risk assessment.
Thank you. And maybe if you could forward that, where that is in the report, to Councillor Paulson, that could give her some reassurance. James and Cathy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll get to the point with my question. 2.96 in the papers refers to the issues around staff and implications on both staff here and staff working for bus companies. I think it follows on from the questions being raised about the transition issues as well. Could you just reassure us around what will be done around looking after the staff? Obviously, we had the work really hard on recruiting and training new bus drivers. Please, Simon.
Thank you, Cathy.
So, given that the next item on this agenda will be looking at the West Yorkshire Mass Transit visit, can you tell me what impact that will have on the franchising?
Simon.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Lewis is absolutely right to raise the important issue here that there are very loyal teams of staff within our bus companies, and a process of change, should that be decided, could inevitably be a moment of concern for staff. We have engaged with employee representatives through the consultation process. They are a statutory consultee within the process. We've had very fruitful engagement with them in that regard. I made reference before specifically to the TUPE process, and the law does provide all bus operator staff with the right to transfer between operators should a new operating company win a particular franchise that's currently for a service that's currently operated by another operator, and it includes the requirement for the new employer to protect them within that process. That is something that would clearly be enshrined within our franchise conditions, and something that we would manage very closely going forwards. With regard to the relationship with mass transit, so I should stress first of all that within the assessment, and we do note within the consultation reports that this was something of a cause for frustration for a number of people who engaged with us through the consultation. We are very conservative with a small c in terms of how we assess the potential of the franchising scheme. We do not take into account the fact that in parallel in West Yorkshire we are looking to bring forward our mass transit system, because at this stage it is not part of the fabric, and therefore we could not do so. But clearly, as we have set out consistently through the local transport plan, through the West Yorkshire plan, and so forth, we are looking to secure the most integrated transport proposition across the conurbation as it develops over time. The ability for us to be able to remove any competition constraints to one integrated ticketing system, which franchising provides, would clearly give us the opportunity over time then to develop a bus network and a mass transit system in concert with each other, because it's only through making best use of all three of our future public transport modes, bus, rail and mass transit, that we'll be able to satisfy the diversity of travel that West Yorkshire will need to be successful in the future.
Thank you, Simon. Ben, and then Councillor Lamb.
Just to build on Simon's point about integration across modes of public transport, later on the agenda this morning we've got an introductory paper to Local Transport Plan 4, very much hoping that that's the document and the framework that we use to integrate these things going forward. So forward reference to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I just clarify, will we have an opportunity to make a general comment before we get to decision making?
I see no reason why you can't comment, of course. Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. So, firstly, as you know, Mayor, I'm passionate about improving public transport in my area of Wetherby as a cross-border person as well. I would like a bit more reassurance about how we're going to work in partnership. We don't live in a bubble. It's welcome that we have York represented at the table here, but how we get those transport links and improvements, because for a lot of outer areas, not just mine in Wetherby, the issue is actually connectivity to other settlements. It'd be lovely if everyone came to Leeds, but some people do like to go to York and Harrogate and other places, and they need to be able to get there. So some more reassurance on that. The next question was about consultation. I think it says in the report, and forgive me if I'm misquoting, but there's overwhelming public support for franchising. I'm not sure the evidence backs that up, given 1,172 responses equates to 0.05% of the population of West Yorkshire. So I wonder if you want to reflect if we can accurately say there's overwhelming public support. Following on from Councillor Galton's comments, when can passengers expect to see improvements to services as a result of franchising? So that's a simple question. Do you want me to do them all in one go?
We pause there. Yeah. Simon, if you'd like to answer those first initial three.
I'm so sorry, Councillor, I actually missed your third question. Would you mind just repeating?
No problem. It's when can passengers expect to see improvements in their services?
Thank you. So, first of all, with regard to cross-boundary partnership, yes, I mentioned before that we would be looking to dedicate significant resource to cross-boundary partnership in the planning of a future network. And of course, one of the central advantages that a franchising proposition would give us in this regard is that we could discuss with our partners over the boundary with a far greater degree of confidence in terms of what we would be able to secure within West Yorkshire. And I think that would really help to strengthen the cross-boundary partnership. And actually, we've seen those near neighbours in Greater Manchester do that very well recently as they've been rolling out the North East Greater Manchester B network, and we are about to see some of those services operating into West Yorkshire over the coming weeks. So I think there is a model that holds itself in that regard. I've asked Alex just to check to the specific reference that we made to public responses. Within the public responses that we received within the consultation, there was overwhelming support. What I should stress is that the consultation is not intended to be in any way, shape or form a referendum. It is intended to gather information that helps to ensure that not only the assessment but the final deployment of any model that's decided upon is as relevant to consultees as we can possibly make it, and that's where the real value lies. I would suggest within the consultation. Have I missed?
And improvements?
Sorry, improvements in the near term. So we've set out the timetable in the assessment for bus franchising. It is a process that would take us through to actually seeing delivery on the streets in 2027, and that's for good reason. As we have discussed earlier in the meeting, there are genuine commercial implications associated with the deployment of a bus franchising system. It mustn't be undertaken lightly, and we have to ensure that we provide the right periods of engagement with markets right through that process. That is not to suggest that we do not intend, as the combined authority, to continue to deliver improvements on the streets in between. And I mentioned a number of the initiatives in response to Councillor Galton's earlier reply, and only yesterday with the Transport Committee we were reviewing where we go next in terms of the deployment of improvements to services through BSIP. So we will continue to deliver improvements out there through any period of transition.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb and then Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll try and finish on this run. So Manchester obviously have been slightly ahead of us on this one. The costs have gone up substantially from what were originally projected. So one question is, what have we learnt and how can we be reassured that the numbers are right here? The second question, I've had a lot of confusion from residents. Some people think coming into public control is the same as coming into public ownership, which it isn't. Some people think that's a good thing, some people think it's a bad thing. Can we be really clear? Private operators will still make a profit out of this. They just won't have the risk, and effectively will have a guaranteed profit because the taxpayer will have the risk instead. And the final question...
Do you want to pause there, Councillor Lamb? And I'll bring in Councillor Paulson, and then you can go in the next round. Councillor Paulson?
Yeah, mine's slightly closer to home in capacity issues of the combined authority to actually run what would be a huge operation. I know we've struggled to fill key roles within the mass transit team in transport. How confident are we that we've got the right people in place and we can get the right people in place if this goes ahead to run what would be a massive operation?
Thank you. Simon?
Thank you. With regard to changes in costs in Greater Manchester, we are staying close to Greater Manchester to understand any changes, and there are a number of aspects within our proposals that look to address some of the challenges that Greater Manchester face, not least some of the issues due to quite a protracted legal period that then constrained Greater Manchester's mobilisation period, and in particular our approach to depot acquisition has taken on board a number of the lessons that Greater Manchester have learned for themselves as they've gone through that process. Councillor Lamb is absolutely right there that a franchising process is a process of public control. It is a commercial exercise. We would fully expect that any franchisees would make a suitable commercial margin through that exercise, and we've set out that we hope very clearly and very transparently within the proposition. Councillor Poulson raises an incredibly important point. We are increasingly seeing now as the combined authority very strong responses to recruitment activities that we are taking out to the market. I think the success of this combined authority as a whole has demonstrated to people that West Yorkshire Combined Authority is a place to come and work. We understand very clearly the capabilities that we need to bring in. We understand where those capabilities are best located as permanent staff inside the organisation, where they are best located as professional advice that we bring into the organisation. So I take the point very seriously. It is an aspect that we would continue to monitor against our risk register, but at this stage I'm confident that we're moving in the right direction in terms of our recruitment approaches.
Thank you, James, and then back to Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to raise an issue around, if we move into this, around public consultation, around service changes. You know, all the councillors around the table in the room have had the experience. If you wake up, you find the bus company is changing a service, you contact them and they say, well, we've made our minds up and that's that. We've had it in our ward where large parts of metal have been cut off. I know in Leeds Dock at the moment, the 29 buses are being withdrawn. There, just a couple of examples, I'm sure. If we had a lot more time, every councillor in the room could come up with an example. How under franchising, would the public be involved in setting routes and times and having a network that's more suitable than one that's just up to bus companies that in the situation you have at the moment, please, Simon?
Thank you. Councillor Poulsen. Sorry, it was just Councillor Lamb, apologies. So
Yeah,
thank you, James.
My last one, you'll be glad to know. So on the money, it's set out in the report, we're looking at somewhere between 350 and 400 million pounds for franchising over the period of time. Specifically, which budget is that coming from? And if those budgets aren't available, there's a lot of assumptions around grants and things like that. If that isn't, where's the money going to come from? Are we in a position to rule out introducing a mayoral precept, which could be £600 to £800 a year per household in West Yorkshire to fund the cost of franchising, if you can't find the money elsewhere?
Simon.
Thank you, Matt. I'm not sure I recognise the number in a conurbation of about a million households. So, but I can talk that through with Councillor Lamb later. The two principal costs are the transition costs and the purchase of depots. Those are provided for within the gain share benefits that West Yorkshire accrued through the devolution deal. The additional cost that is set out somewhere in the order of £250 million reflects an ongoing commitment that would be required under either approach in order for us to be able to meet the objectives that we have set for an improved bus fleet in West Yorkshire. And whether we were pursuing that through franchising or partnership, we would be using the same revenue base as a financing tool in part, in addition to ongoing government grants. If those government grants were not to come forward, then we would still have an operating fleet, but we would have an operating fleet that was more at a Euro 6 standard than a zero emission standard. So it would not impact on the operation of the network. What we have looked to set out is where we would need to go in order to achieve the zero emission fleet objectives that we have. To date, we've had a very strong partnership. In fact, we have an item on the agenda later with government in securing funding for zero emission buses. If we were to continue to benefit from that strong relationship with government going forwards, then we would certainly be able to put ourselves in a position of delivering that level of fleet investment.
Thank you. And did you address James's point?
Consultation on service changes. So, should a decision be taken on bus franchising, one important aspect that we would then need to undertake with Ben's guidance is to look at the governance model through the Transport Committee and the Combined Authority going forwards, because first and foremost, the form of accountability for a franchising system back to the public would be through yourselves as members of the combined authority, and then in turn members of the Transport Committee. And we would take guidance from you as members as to the approach that you would like us to then take in terms of regular consultation with the general public as we go through the rounds of franchise letting. But I think the central point to make is that would very much be in your hands as elected members.
Thank you. Any more questions, or would you like to make a comment, Councillor Lamb?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's just a general comment before we go to decision making. I joined the Combined Authority not quite a year ago, and I've been looking at this issue and came at it with an open mind, genuinely. I don't have an ideological view against franchising. I can see lots of benefits to it. Equally, and EP Plus, I can see lots of benefits from that. So I've come to a pragmatic view of what do people actually want. They're sadly used to having to wait for buses, but I don't think they want to have to wait for improvements to bus services. And the quickest, cheapest and best value for the fare payer and taxpayer in the short term is through EP Plus. That's not to rule out franchising. And to my mind, the pragmatic approach here, particularly given the issues that quite rightly been raised, we don't know yet the impact of mass transit. In some cases, we're potentially building in a competition. I'm concerned the Combined Authority doesn't have the capacity to do both at the same time in parallel. So my view is we should be looking at Enhanced Partnership Plus now. That can deliver bus service improvements quickly, within months. It depends on the bus operators, which I accept. The stick of franchising is always there if they don't deliver and don't step up to the plate. And to me, that is the most sensible way to go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. I listened carefully to what Councillor Lamb says, but I think, to be honest, the bus companies have had long enough. People in my ward and the parts of Leeds and West Yorkshire served by Arriva West Yorkshire have the country's worst bus service. Or any of us that rely on that bus service have known that for a long time, and frankly, I think the operators have had long enough. They've had without going too far back in history, but they've had the time since Thatcher privatised the buses to deliver a good bus service. We've had numerous partnership arrangements in place over the last couple of decades, and here we are, like I say, with large parts of West Yorkshire having the country's worst bus service, recognised by the Independent Transport Passenger Focus Service. So I think the time is right to move on. The bus companies have had their chance, but now we need to be moving along with other regions of the country that are moving into franchising, or indeed London, which never moved away to us to have the transport we deserve. So I hear what Councillor Lamb says. I know he's looked at it very closely, but I do think the bus companies have had their chance, and it's time we need to move on for people in West Yorkshire.
Thank you, Councillor Morley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Myself, Councillor Lewis and Councillor Galton all represent neighbouring wards. I don't think any of us can say the bus companies that work in our areas and seem to be getting inundated now with people complaining about various routes, the 110, the 446, 447, God knows what other routes, that they're just not turning up, just not running on time. It's just not fit for purpose anymore. So I'm shocked that the opposition group on the council basically wanted to roll West Yorkshire back. We need a fit-for-purpose bus network, and we need to move forward with this.
Thank you so much. Councillor Pulse.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement we need better services across West Yorkshire, but we want them now. We don't want them after years and years and years of legal battles that's likely to happen, as happened elsewhere in the country. We want, and our residents deserve better services now. And passing the risk from the operators to the taxpayers is not clear to people, and they need to be very aware of what the decision is being made today.
Mandy.
Thanks, and thanks, Simon, for such a comprehensive set of papers for us all to consider. I think for the people of West Yorkshire, not having bus services where they need them, when they need them, to get where they want to is really essential, and the improvement hasn't taken place over a long period of time. Whatever the decision is, and if it is for franchising, I think it would be good to consult with businesses and colleges of how we drum up that usage and patronage of buses to get kids to college who can't get there and have to take 2 buses and to get people to work. And so maybe consulting with the institutions and the businesses as well as the people is an important step forward.
Thank you. Ben?
Thank you. It's just to respond to the point about risk. As Simon said earlier, we have looked very carefully at risk. It is the case at the moment, of course, that the public sector does bear lots of the practical risk for the implications when bus operators remove services, because that's the role that the tender service network plays. So it's probably important to bear in mind that it isn't at that complete transfer. There's risk sharing at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you. If everyone is content, Simon, do you want to just come back on those comments?
It was just to clarify for members. So the process as set out under the Bus Services Act requires a decision to be taken directly on a franchising scheme. That there isn't an option that's provided for to potentially return to this franchising scheme. If a decision is taken not to pursue the franchising scheme, we would have to undertake a fresh assessment. That is the requirement under the Act.
And that fresh assessment, I'm assuming, would be a period of time.
Yes, this one has been about 2 years in preparation.
Thank you. Okie dokie. Looking around, it seems like all questions and statements have been made. Are we ready to vote on the recommendations? Good, thank you. And if I could pass over to Caroline to take us through the recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 7 recommendations in front of members today, and given the importance of this decision, I do propose to take members through them one by one. So I know we don't usually do that, so apologies, but for clarity, can we look at recommendation 10.1.1, that the Combined Authority notes the completion of the consultation process, its extent and the responses received?
We're happy to approve that recommendation. Yes, thank you. That would be helpful, actually, if we could raise hands. These are important recommendations. Thank you. Moving on, Caroline.
10.1.2, that the authority notes and considers the contents of the consultation response report at Appendix 2 and associated documents, including the bus reform assessment, and endorses the Combined Authority's response to the consultation summarised in the report and set out at Appendix 2.
Are we happy to recommend? Thank you.
10.
I'm noting an abstention. Oh, it's a yes. Sorry.
Against.
Against. Apologies. Apologies. Against that recommendation. Please make yourself known. Thank you. I'm moving on, Caroline.
10.1.3, that the Combined Authority recommends to the Mayor that she makes a franchising scheme as set out at Appendix 3, complying with all associated statutory requirements, rather than recommending that the Combined Authority pursues an enhanced partnership plus. So those in favour of the recommendation, please show.
In favour? Thank you. And against? Thank you. Caroline.
10.1.4, when the Mayor has decided whether or not to make a franchising scheme, agree to adopt and publish the Combined Authority's response to the consultation, together with the Mayor's decision as a report to be published by the Combined Authority under Section 123G1 of the Transport Act 2000, and in accordance with Section 123G2 of the Act, to give notice to the Traffic Commissioner. Could I see a show of hands in support of that recommendation?
So for, thank you, and against? Abstentions? Thank you.
10.1.5, if the Mayor decides to make a franchising scheme, to publish the scheme set out at Appendix 3 on behalf of the Mayor at the same time as the consultation response report to be published under Section 123G1 of the Act, and at the same time publish a transitional notice in the terms set out in Appendix 4, and then within 14 days of the date upon which that is published, to give notice to the Traffic Commissioner of its publication on behalf of the Mayor, if the Mayor so decides. Or alternatively, the Combined Authority as required by the Public Service Vehicles, Registration of Local Services, Franchising Schemes, Transitional Provisions and Amendments, England Regulations 2018. Further, to agree that in conducting procurement process for the provision of local services, the Combined Authority will facilitate the involvement of small and medium-sized operators in the provision of local services as set out at Appendix 5, and finally, to commence with mobilisation of franchising, noting section 2.140 to 2.160 of this report on mobilisation. Could I take votes in favour of that recommendation?
Thank you. And against? And abstentions? Thank you.
10.1.6. If the Mayor recommends that the Combined Authority pursues Enhanced Partnership Plus, to commence with mobilisation of Enhanced Partnership Plus, noting section 2.140 to 2.160 of this report on mobilisation. Those in favour of that?
In favour? Thank you. And against? And abstentions? One abstention, thank you.
And finally, 10.1.7, that the Combined Authority approves the repurposing of the remaining £2,883,150 funding approved for the preparation of the assessment to be used for initial mobilisation costs. Those in favour?
Thank you. Against? Abstention? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Those are the Combined Authority's recommendations to you.
Thank you, colleagues, for your recommendations. I now believe I am in a position to take a formal decision. There is some formal wording that I need to go through first in order to take that decision. I have read and considered the report and associated documents presented to me at this meeting in full, including the bus reform assessment, consultation response report, proposed franchising scheme, draft transition notice, and the position paper on the impact of small and medium-sized operators. I've also taken into account the information presented to me to date, including a briefing with the Combined Authority officers on Monday the 12th of March, which included a detailed discussion of the Combined Authority report and associated documents, and a provision of the programme transition risk registers. I note that in line with statutory requirements, the Combined Authority has completed an assessment of the proposed franchising scheme in accordance with Section 12.3b Transport Act 2000, has obtained a report from an independent auditor of that assessment in accordance with Section 12.123d Transport Act 2000, and has carried out a consultation in respect of the proposed franchising scheme on 10th of October 2023 to 7th of January 2024 in accordance with sections 123E and 123F Transport Act 2000. I have also considered the recommendation of the members of the Combined Authority that I make the franchising scheme and that the transitional notice is published. I am satisfied that making the West Yorkshire franchising scheme offers clear strategic benefits and greater opportunity to achieve the Combined Authority's objectives and ambitions for West Yorkshire, and that it is justifiable in terms of delivering high value for money, it's affordable and deliverable as has been assessed. Consequently, having considered all of the evidence and being satisfied that all legal requirements have been complied with, I hereby decide on behalf of the Combined Authority and in accordance with Section 123G4 of the Transport Act 2000 as amended by the Bus Services Act 2017 to make the West Yorkshire franchising scheme and publish the transitional notice set out in Appendix 4 of the Combined Authority. What a historic moment for West Yorkshire. We are bringing buses back into public control and we are putting passengers first. And this is the biggest change to the way that buses are run for our region over the last 40 years and will impact on generations to come. We know that buses are vital for our communities and that franchising will help us build that better connected West Yorkshire, that better connected bus network that works for all. There is clear, as we've heard, public support for this outcome. But of course, we know that change will not happen overnight. The hard work we've been doing to improve the bus network continues while we work at pace to bring this new way of running the buses to residents across the region. And we will crack on at pace, delivering the changes that the public want to see, which is why we will continue to invest in new routes to reconnect communities, to improve bus stations, stops and shelters, and to improve that passenger experience. What a moment for West Yorkshire. What a moment for devolution. And I am delighted to make this decision for the people of West Yorkshire. Thank you all so much for your recommendations. Thank you. Right, moving on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you so much. We are moving on to mass transit. I know that Councillor Hinchcliffe has to leave at 12:15, so we will then move on after mass transit to item 13 in order to make sure that we have covered as many of the transport items as possible. So the next item on the agenda is equally important to achieving our ambitions to create that better connected region that works for all, an important step in our progress to achieve a mass transit system. This report provides an update on the progress and development of mass transit phase 1 strategic outline case and sets out our plans to submit it to government. This is a major step forward towards securing more funding and delivering this significant infrastructure project. Mass transit will be transformational for West Yorkshire, helping our communities to thrive, our economy to flourish, benefiting generations to come with greater opportunity and prosperity. The project will still need to progress to an outline and then a full business case with a detailed assessment by government. And at this stage, it's of course important to note that any decision today does not preempt the exact route, which of course will be subject to a full public consultation. I think there is a point of clarification on a recommendation Caroline would like to address.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, 12.1, the first bullet point, just for clarification, this should be seeking authority to delegate submission of the strategic outline case to the DFT to the Executive Director for Transport in consultation with the Mayor. So I just make that point for clarification for members when you consider the recommendations and also for the minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And can I hand over to Councillor Hinchcliffe as Chair of the Transport Committee and then over to Simon?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is really great to see this paper here and the progress that has been made, rapid progress over the last year. We wouldn't have this without having mayoral devolution, and it's great to see the investments that are going into it to deliver at pace. So just really welcome this, getting the strategic outline business case. It's going to get the whole of West Yorkshire, and transport is just so fundamental to improving our economic outcomes for all our residents. So great to see this paper here, and I'll pass over to officers.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think as members are aware, we are in a unique position as West Yorkshire at present, in that we are the one city region in the country that has secured the scale of development funding already for the West Yorkshire mass transit system, and we have continued to receive statements of assurance at a national level that future funds are available to progress our initiatives, subject to us presenting compliant business cases into government in a timely fashion. And really that's very much the purpose of this report today. So we have previously agreed as a combined authority the vision for our long-term mass transit system, and as part of that identified very clearly our intention to pursue a first phase. This report summarises a large body of work that Luke and colleagues have been working on to now bring forward a coherent case for that first phase. The stage that we are at present is what's termed strategic outline case, and it's a critical stage for us, both in terms of reaffirming the support from the Department for Transport, but also now being able to start to bring our proposals out into the public domain so that we can properly engage and consult with stakeholders and the general public. So having undertaken the process of review of options as set out in the report, we have concluded a phase one approach which takes two parts. First of all, phase 1A, the Leeds and Bradford lines. We have identified that there is a good case to be made for these two lines. The Leeds line operating between St James's University Hospital, White Rose via Leeds City Centre and Ellen Road, and for the Bradford line to operate from St James's University Hospital. So both lines capitalising on a shared alignment through the city centre, through to Bradford Forster Square, via Leeds City Centre and the planned new railway station south of Bradford City Centre. In addition, we continue to see the longer term case for the extension of the Leeds line through to Dewsbury. And so what we propose is a phase 1B, which is a Dewsbury line development project, reflecting that Kirklees Council is now embarking on a process of review of the Kirklees local plan, which is looking to conclude in 2027, and we are requesting the release of funds today to support that programme so that it can run in a timely fashion alongside the development of the Kirklees local plan. We set out in the report our current understanding of costs, benefits and funding. So a first phase network of this scale is likely to cost somewhere in the order of £2 billion. We are at a very early stage in terms of understanding costs. But if we set those costs alongside the statements that we have seen, we are within the envelope that has previously been suggested. From a value for money perspective, at this very early stage, we would advise, as a team who have now worked on a number of light rail schemes across the country, that we would like to be in the order of parity in terms of cost to benefits, and that's where we find ourselves at present. So we can advise the combined authority that at this stage we are in the right position in terms of a value for money statement, with significantly more economic benefits to secure as we move towards the identification of specific preferred alignments and start to work with the development community. There will be a requirement under national policy for a local funding contribution. We believe that may be in the likely region of £500 million in total, which would equate to a borrowing requirement of somewhere in the order of £30 million per annum over a likely 30-year borrowing period, and we are now commissioning work to give advice into the combined authority over the coming months around our options for raising that. So we are seeking today your approval for us to submit the strategic outline case into the formal Department for Transport assurance process. That is a process that will then run largely at official level through the period between now and the end of May, and then we would expect to see a ministerial sign-off that would then trigger for Luke and team work then towards the outline business case stage. We are also seeking approval for us to make preparations for a summer route options consultation. So at this stage, we are not proposing through either of the lines that I've described one specific route alignment. It's very important that we bring forward the options that we have been considering through those corridors so that they can be the subject of public consultation. We haven't published maps showing those at this stage because that would inevitably lead into a form of public engagement in advance of a formal consultation, and it is right within the arrangements that we have in place with the department that they should go through their assurance process before that consultation starts, and we would then look to run that consultation through the summer, providing the opportunity for stakeholders and communities to provide their views on the options before we then undertake further work and bring forward proposed specific route alignments for then a subsequent statutory consultation as the year wears on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, and it is pleasing to see that it's 3 local authority regions that will be that will benefit from mass transit. So, thoughts and questions, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I'm happy to be able to change tack on this one and be wholeheartedly supportive of where we've got to on this one. So we may have disagreements on some things, but actually I think one of the strengths of this combined authority is having cross-party representation on it, and I think it's I'm sure it's irritating at times, but
I couldn't possibly comment, Councillor Lamb.
But I think it is a strength, and long may it continue. On this issue, to me, this is the game changer for the region potentially in terms of public transport, and I think the points I wanted to make at this stage, to absolutely support the recommendations in the paper, but as we said in our private briefing, I think it's really important that we do all we can to take the politics out of this and speak with one voice. There are some of us around the table who still bear the scars from previous failed attempts to deliver mass transit for Leeds in particular. And I think, as difficult as it is at times, I think strategically we all share the ambition. Some of the detail we may have differing views, and it will be a challenge for all of us, but I think it is crucial that we work as one, and when we're speaking to government, it's with one voice and there's nothing between us. So the governance structures and things, as we approach it, it's crucial that opposition groups and other parties are kept involved, informed, that the views, and I would love this to be going out to Weatherby. First off, I'm a realist as well. We have to deliver what's practical and sensible. The one thing I would ask at this stage is, at an early point, we really look at making sure, whether through an integrated means or by a direct line, I think probably integrated is the approach. We're really looking at getting the airport linked in. Leeds and Bradford is the sensible place to start, but it's absolutely crucial, I think, for the economic growth of the city and the region, that there's a much easier public transport related way of getting from wherever you are. If you start on a bus, jump on the tram, finish on a train, that's fine if it's integrated, but getting the airport connectivity, I think, is absolutely crucial at the early stage. So they're the points I wanted to make, and I hope other colleagues will agree. This is one where we can absolutely work together, put our other differences aside and deliver something transformative, not just for this region, but I think we should be talking to partners in York, Harrogate, Crave and Selby as well, and making sure they're connected into this in some way.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. And now we are franchising the bus network. We will get exactly that integration that you so need and demand. So well, the buses hopefully will go to where the mass transit ends. So that's a good thing. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Poulsen and Councillor Gold.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, the first stage route, the Bradford-Leeds one, probably tram, is being announced. I hope going forward we're going to be a bit like Manchester, where then it can extend over many years. And we're looking going forward of land use. We don't want people to buy a new house and then we have to purchase it and pull it down in the future. We need to be looking at where development is going to be, where there's going to be growth in housing and in industry going forward, so that we can make sure we have a future-proof network.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Poulsen. Shall we take the questions all together and then respond? So, Councillor Galton.
Following on from Councillor Lamb's point about us all singing from the same hymn sheet, no matter what political party you are, to get decent infrastructure for our area, fully support the mass transit system. But following on from Councillor Lamb's allusion to change in administration sometimes having negative impacts on plans made with a previous administration, I remember going to see the coalition, and all of a sudden having a Lib Dem minister that told us he didn't like trams, he liked buses. So our plans had to be readjusted and ultimately didn't reach completion. It would be good to have an assurance from Mayor Brabin that discussions have already taken place with those people with the hands on the machinery, potentially in a few months' time, to ensure that there won't be such an about face in terms of our modal ambitions in mass transit. And then secondly, it was more of an issue around where we've chosen to put our initial investment, because most of that investment seems to duplicate infrastructure which is already there or has recently been invested in. So, for instance, we've just got a brand new train station that was supposed to make a big difference at White Rose, and now that's going to be ultimately the destination for our first Leeds line. And the same going to Bradford, it seems to be in parallel on our map with good local rail lines and national rail lines, and it would be good to understand the rationale, because some people will be saying, oh, there's more investment going to the same places, you know, and they're having to wait for their turn. So having a good rationale for that would be helpful, I think.
Thank you. I'm assuming that Councillor Hinchcliffe is responding to that point, and then I'll come to yourself, Cathy.
Yeah, I think it's important to note really, this is a massive opportunity. With all the transport stuff we're discussing today, we've been underinvested in for decades in transport, and this, what we're discussing today, is it's wonderful that we're here to be able to do this, because actually West Yorkshire Mass Transit does something different to buses, does something different to heavy rail. We use heavy rail in this region as mass transit because we've nothing else. So, but heavy rail is meant to get us from city to city. It's, what it doesn't do, what mass transit will do, is stop between time. So it actually stops in those places which don't have any transport links at the moment, to be able to connect them to the major cities and towns either side. So I think because we're not used to having proper transport in this region, we don't understand the difference between all of them, but they all do different things and they all need to be integrated, and then that really lifts our economy. So there's a fantastic opportunity here, but I think as you see it develop, Councillor Goldman, you'll see the additional benefits you get from mass transit that you don't get with heavy rail and you don't get with bus. And just to correct you, the links between Leeds and Bradford on the rail are not good at all, and that's why government have committed to electrifying that line, for example, 12 minutes, and that work needs to progress at pace, because I can assure you, as somebody who travels between Leeds and Bradford frequently, that service is not good enough at all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Simon, if you could answer those points, and then I'll come to Councillor Scott and Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, certainly. So, firstly, with regard to the airport, we do have within the West Yorkshire Transport Fund's capital programme the Leeds Bradford Airport Station scheme. That is coming towards a conclusion in terms of preparation of a full business case. So I'm looking forward to bringing that forward to the combined authority, combining that provision on the local rail line then with interchange here in the centre will provide huge opportunities for us to capitalise on the asset that is the airport, and I think it's a point that's very well made. In terms of future expansion plans, Councillor Poulson makes a very good point, two very good points. Firstly, once we have got to the point of having established the core hub of a system, and there are greater capital costs associated with that first part of the system than is subsequently the case, because there are depots and power sources and first generation fleet and such considerations that play into the first lines. As we've set out in the vision, we absolutely want to be able to provide the conditions for the system to continue to expand, and in many ways the model that we're establishing with Kirklees through the review of the local plan is the way for us to be able to address this, so that we can start to set out through future iterations of local plans where we would go with mass transit and address those issues that you raise around development. In terms of the case for the two alignments, I think it's incredibly important to consider the whole corridor benefits that are associated with light rail schemes. So the point is well made that we wanted to be able to connect White Rose with a range of destinations through our rail system, and it's great that the station work there is coming towards a conclusion, so that will become a reality. This intervention is about the entire continued growth and regeneration of the city of Leeds to the south. It's about where development might go in the future in support of a reinvigorated Ellen Road. It's about all of the development that we've already seen and will continue to see on the South Bank. And I think if we look at corridors elsewhere where light rail schemes have fundamentally changed the development potential through whole corridors, that's where the economic benefit lies, rather than simply the point to point. And in many ways, the same case applies then to the Bradford line. What we know through Network North and continued close working that we have with colleagues within the Department for Transport is that at a national level, government wants to be able to promote the Bradford to Leeds rail line as a fast city-to-city connection, which, as Councillor Hinchliffe quite rightly points out, it is not at the moment. So actually, a large amount of the support that we've seen from central government for the Bradford line is predicated on us bringing forward a tram system that then serves all of the communities in between the two cities well, which of course again the rail line struggles to do at present, and also supports the fundamental regeneration that the investment in that new station in Bradford will bring about in Bradford Southern Gateway. And then finally, to address that long-standing issue that we've had in Bradford of two rail termini that are not well connected to each other. So there are a series of benefits through these corridors, and I think Councillor Galton makes a really important point that as we move forward to consultation, it's going to be incredibly important that we set that out. This isn't just about point to point, this is about a whole corridor approach to travel and development.
Thank you so much. Councillor Scott, Councillor Lewis, and then Mandy.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just a general comment. Thank you for the excellent report. It's good news as the whole for West Yorkshire, and Kirklees are embarking on their review of their local plan. So for us to be counted into Phase B, that's really an exceptional achievement here, particularly to take into consideration what we're trying to achieve, and the people of Dewsbury will be really happy.
Thank you. And Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. I won't break the cross-party consensus, Councillor Galton, by expanding on your point about political parties that support and then oppose transport schemes. I think it is really important we work together on this. I think it's worth reflecting, in terms of looking at the real case around what we're doing with mass transit, to look at sort of the much broader case around different areas of public policy we're building for this. So it's a key significant transport scheme that people have talked about, but within, and I'll look at it through a Leeds lens for a short moment. That we agreed the regeneration partnership with the DLUC around how we bring forward new housing development. Key to that is mass transit. It's a really important transport, but it also affects other areas of public policy where we want to see things delivered. And of course, the route potentially could link together some really key institutions in Leeds, like the two hospitals, Elland Road, one of the most important institutions in the city, bar none, and other and as we've talked about, linking, unlike previous schemes, linking together on the first phase is 3 of the 5 districts in West Yorkshire. So I do think it is a really strong case we're putting forward here, and I think we all welcome the support here.
Thank you. And just to reassure Councillor Galton as well that discussions have been had regularly at the heart of the potentially a new government. So we hopefully have support across the benches. Mandy.
Thank you. It's great news to see this, and mass transit is something that we so desperately need. With the 2 things that have been on the agenda so far, there's an opportunity here to increase skills in the region and keep those skills in the region, so around transport planning, around building, and around all the other things around that. Can we make sure that when we're doing this work, we try and take advantage of keeping as much money in the region and increasing as many skills in the region as we can to benefit from this in the holistic approach?
It's a great point. If I may, just for because of time, bringing Councillor Dacre. Sylvia?
The importance of the hospitals in Leeds, because of course they are important for everybody across West Yorkshire, and so although Calderdale isn't going to benefit directly from mass transit anytime soon, improvements in public transport in Leeds, and particularly the connectivity to the hospitals, is absolutely crucial for all of us.
Thank you. Simon, on those 3 points.
Thank you, and thank you for the strong statements of support from members. I think the one substantive issue for me to address is the issue around skills, and there are a couple of important initiatives there. So we are looking at and engaging with the market at the moment on our core supply partners through to preparation of full business case, and we are making social value, and in particular the development of a West Yorkshire skills base a critical consideration within that engagement with the market. Secondly, we've had some fantastic engagement recently with a number of our universities, and we do benefit from some globally valuable centres of excellence in terms of transport planning within our universities, not just at Leeds, but also at Huddersfield. Some great approaches from those sectors recently, and we're looking forward to working closer with them to see how their work can come closer and benefit from mass transit.
Thank you, and certainly that point about the hospitals is really valid and vital for the whole of our region. Thank you. Okie doke, so no more questions. I think it's be important just to step through the recommendations, if that's okay. So let's note, are we happy to note the strategic outline business case work and delegate submission of this to the DFT, to the Mayor and Executive Director for Transport for submission to the DFT? Happy to note, thank you.
Just for clarity, so sorry,
Thank
that's the delegation is to Simon in consultation with yourself now.
Thank you. Can I just ask, obviously time is pressing depending on the election, how does that work?
So the process that,
basically, is it going to before May the 2nd?
Oh yes, absolutely. So we will be submitting the business case this month. It's an official date submission, and therefore is business as usual and not impacted on by the local government election process.
Thank you. We don't want any delay. Are we happy to approve the continued development of Phase 1A of the Mass Transit Programme and to commence work on the development of the outline business case and the Transport and Works Act order application? We are, thank you. And are we happy to approve the commencing wider stakeholder engagement March 2024 and public consultation on Phase 1A in the summer 2024? Happy to approve, thank you. And are we happy to approve the allocation of up to £1 million of funds from the mass transit budget, excuse me, to support the Dewsbury Line development project in parallel with the development of the future Kirklees local plan? Are we happy to approve? A hearty approval from Councillor Scott there, quite right too. So if colleagues will indulge me in order to help timings for Councillor Hinchcliffe, we're going to jump to item 13, to the transport items, then we will take a short break. And we have biscuits, so nobody needs to faint. So please do bear that in mind. Make sure you get a drink, and it has been a long meeting so far. So over to item 13. Let's move to that item. Just bear with me. So item 13 is project approvals. We are going to go firstly to the D, item 13D, which as you flick through your own paperwork, you might get there sooner than me. And this is project approvals, investment priority 5, delivering sustainable, integrated, inclusive and affordable transport. This focuses on transport with investments in bus priority schemes, rail schemes and active travel. Now, can I remind members, Scheme 10 contains an exempt appendix. If members wish to discuss the exempt appendix, we might have to suspend the live stream. Can I ask members if they want to discuss the appendix 10, Scheme 10, appendix, exempt appendix? No, thank you. So can I hand over to, firstly, I think, to Simon Warburton to talk us through the Bradford interchange. Just this is a good moment for that update on Bradford interchange, if you wouldn't mind, Simon.
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. So, in advance of colleagues who've joined me at the table, taking members through the various investment proposals, I just wanted to provide a short update to members on the current position with regard to Bradford Interchange. Members will be aware that on the 4th of January, regrettably, we had to cease bus operations through Bradford Interchange due to a number of concerns that had arisen from concrete falls into the basement of the facility, and recognising our health and safety duties first and foremost. I've been very grateful for the support from members of both the Combined Authority and Bradford Council in terms of that very difficult decision. Huge support from both council officers, bus operator staff and also our own teams here in the Combined Authority in the subsequent days to put in place arrangements around the Jacobs Well area to continue to provide an operating facility. We recognise that that is very much a temporary facility. Through that period, we have instigated work to fully survey the state of the structure at Bradford Interchange. That is by no means a small undertaking. It's a significant and quite unusual structure that we have in place, and members will recognise that it's incredibly important for us to be able to assure ourselves that it's appropriate to run what are 12-ton vehicles over that facility. Work had already been underway at Bradford Interchange as a combined authority. You had identified some of the challenges associated with the structure in Bradford, and you had put together funds to support an improvement. I think, regrettably, in the undertaking of those works during a period of increased amounts of heavy rainfall, as we're seeing not only on our own facilities, but as we've recently seen along our railway lines as well, some of those issues have accelerated faster, and that this was the reason why we needed to act. In the coming weeks, the survey work should bring us to an initial conclusion around the scale of work that would be needed in order to reinstate the facility. At that stage, I will be able to give members a full picture with regard to where we go next. However, we do recognise that it is an exceptional year that lies ahead for us in Bradford city centre. There are huge amounts of works currently underway in the city centre, all intended to ensure that we can show Bradford in its very best light as part of 2025 City of Culture. We as a combined authority are a committed partner within the City of Culture, and so we've also instigated work in partnership with council officers to consider alternative locations should it prove that the work that is required means that we will struggle to have the facility open for Bradford 2025. Again, I'll be able to advise members far more clearly as to the arrangements that would be put in place should that come to pass over the coming weeks. In the meantime, we have a weekly monitoring process in place with the council and operators to look at the performance. Week on week, we have been introducing additional passenger waiting facilities and also driver and staff rest arrangements to best support the operation that we have in place. And I can only continue to thank both elected members and travellers for bearing with us through what has been a very difficult period. Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you to colleagues on the front line who are dealing on a daily basis with some of the difficulties. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Simon, for that update. It obviously has been a huge inconvenience and continues to be for the travelling public in Bradford district, and particularly all this wet weather as well. There's no bus station for them to shelter in. It's not an ideal situation at all. Obviously, you gave some updates to Bradford councillors a few weeks ago, and I was asked on Tuesday at full council to make sure that those answers were circulated as quickly as possible. And in fact, one of those was about staff and how they're accommodated actually to make sure that their welfare is well looked after whilst this situation continues. I think it would be also useful if the combined authority could do a bit of customer feedback from the people who are waiting around the city centre for buses, how the arrangements are working for them. What is it like when you obviously approach the greeters at Bradford Interchange? How does that work? So just so that we can put in any improvements we can, need to make it as good as possible for people during this time. And of course, look forward to seeing what the survey results are and talking to you about the next steps as quickly as possible. Obviously, time is of the essence, and we're all very eager to know the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poulsen.
Yeah, just quickly on the back, I'd like to thank Simon. He attended a virtual meeting with councillors in Bradford to give us an update. So what sounds like we're getting to the stage, there might be quite an update to come over short, long-term options. So could I ask that maybe that a meeting set up again when we get to that stage to give us an up-to-date position? Thank you.
Thank you, and hopefully the people of Bradford will know that we're doing our very best to make sure that there is as much information as possible so people aren't inconvenienced with this issue. But safety of the public has to be a priority. So, of course, it's disruptive, but hopefully we can put mitigations in place. Thank you, Simon. So let's move on to the substantive nature of this item, the project approvals. It's the Transport Committee delegation for item 13D, the Kings Road Sustainable Transport Corridor, 13D2, Bus Highway Hotspot Improvements, item 3, Huddersfield Rail Station Connections, TCF in Dewsbury, Batley and Chidswell Sustainable Travel Corridor, Harrogate Railway Station Gateway, Skipton Railway Station Gateway, Selby Station Gateway in TCF, Kirklees Speed Limit Review, and the Corridor Improvement Scheme, the Zebra buses, item 10, Active Travel Fund, Capability Fund is the following item. Are there any comments on any of these schemes people would like to raise or questions? No, thank you. That's it's very straightforward. Ben.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one comment from me, which is members will know that 3 of those schemes relate to station projects outside of the West Yorkshire boundary. They were developed as part of the Transforming Cities Fund projects some years back. And with the creation of the new York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority, we'd like to explore a conversation with them about transferring those schemes to their Combined Authority in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, and I couldn't possibly comment on who I would like to be the Mayor of the North Yorkshire. Caroline.
Apologies, Mayor, I've just spotted there's just one point that we just need to slightly revise, which is at paragraph 4.65, which is a delegation in relation to one of these schemes. The point is the delegation is to the Director of Transport Policy and Delivery, which is of course a vacancy at the moment. So if members are satisfied, can we correct that to be a delegation to the Executive Director for Transport? That's at paragraph 4.65, little Roman numeral 6.
Thank you. We're happy to amend that. Thank you. Brilliant. So let's move on to approvals for the change requests, the delivery of these schemes to commence, and full approval of the Combined Authorities funding contributions. Obviously, the detailed recommendations are set out in the report. We're all happy to approve. Yes, thank you. So let's take a very, very short break at this point. Please do avail yourself of tea and coffee, and we will take a break. 5 minutes only. Thank you very much. Thank you and welcome back to the Combined Authority meeting, and we are continuing our progress through the agenda. Item 7, Better Homes Hub. This is an update on the programme focusing on the development of a retrofit one-stop shop. We know homes are responsible for about 30% of carbon dioxide each year in West Yorkshire. Sadly, our housing stock is older and leakier than the national average, and fuel poverty is also sadly more widespread in our region. For all of these reasons, retrofitting homes is a key priority for me and the CA. Our vision is everyone in West Yorkshire can live in a warm, comfortable and low carbon home. We're making progress to improve sustainability of our housing stock, and can I thank the members of the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership for working with us on this. But 80% of our housing stock in the region is owned or privately rented, and it's a challenge to retrofit these homes because it's very different. The incentives for homeowners and landlords is very different. It's a big commitment with many choices. And even if you choose to make improvements, you may not know where to go for trusted information and advice, may not know which contractors to trust to complete quality work, and may not know how to finance the project. That's why I'm very excited. We're looking to establish a one-stop shop, a single front door to help people navigate these decisions and accelerate the number of retrofit homes in the region. The team will be developing the business case, looking at all the options with a plan for this brought back to the CA in the autumn of this year. So may I pass over to Liz Hunter, our Director of Policing, Environment and Place. Liz.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So as you say, we need to do an awful lot of different things across our housing sector to be able to achieve the aim as you've set out. This paper sets out the things that we're already doing. So we're already delivering with the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership to deliver retrofit within their homes, both through government money and also going further with our own money, particularly on solar, PV and battery. This year we're looking to launch a low interest loan to homeowners, and we're also creating a collective buying scheme, again to try and reduce costs for homeowners. But as you rightly say, we need to do more, and this paper sets out the idea of a one-stop shop. In the paper, you'll see that we've set out different models. We have the Energy Saving Trust as a client-side advisor to us, which is really helpful to understand what's happening internationally, as well as what's happening in places like Scotland, who are already developing some of these approaches for the public. So what we're looking for today is to update you of where we are and the work that's going to happen, and seek your endorsement that we continue, particularly with the business case on the one-stop shop. Paragraph 212 sets out the different models that could look like, and for different parts of the population. They'll probably want different, to take different paths and journeys with us on a one-stop shop journey. But we would like to have your endorsement that we look at the different options, including an all-inclusive model, which if you've looked at some of the background information, that does go a kind of step further from beyond just providing advice and facilitating, actually into enabling us to be responsible for actual retrofit into people's home if they so wish and want to see that as part of the approach. So I'm happy to take questions, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Councillor Paulson.
Yeah, obviously we welcome the report and what will come as the next after you go through the options. One of the things that really concerns me is a lot of our most vulnerable people live in some of our older housing, and lots of them do get these calls or people calling round offering, you know, I'll do you a free energy assessment of your property, oh, and you can apply for this grant and that grant. And sure, some of them are very genuine, but they're not all genuine. And I think people are quite confused now over in the market when they hear different companies doing different things and different schemes, but what is and what isn't genuine. So I wonder if that can sort of be fed into the thought process going forward to make it a lot clearer for people. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Definitely, that's the aim, is to become a trusted place for that advice, and also to work with suppliers so that we too can make sure that the people who are through us, through a one-stop shop, going into people's homes, are trusted. So it's a really important area, and we're certainly through some of this work also trying to understand some of those different barriers for different groups as well. So yeah, really take that on board, and thank you for that.
Absolutely, about trust. Cathy Scott. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's just a general comment. This is a great opportunity to protect our most vulnerable, and having a one-stop shop for a place of trusted information is something, a huge achievement, because we see things that do happen from day to day, not only in households but other things for vulnerable people. But this is really good.
Thank you so much. Are we? It seems questions we've had the questions that people have had. So are we happy to note the report's contents and endorse the development of a business case for the one-stop shop? We are. Thank you so much. This is good news for our region. And moving on to something in the same wheelhouse, West Yorkshire Housing Strategy 2040. We know that West Yorkshire is home to 2.35 million people, all of whom are entitled to that safe, secure and affordable place to call home. Since the start of my term, we've been working hard with partners to deliver better quality and affordable homes, and I'm pleased to say last year alone, we collectively delivered over 1,500 affordable homes, the highest number of completions in West Yorkshire since 2010 and the economic crash, representing 25% of all new homes in the region. We're going to build many more using our Brownfield Housing Fund, which includes over 800 affordable homes in contract to be built so far, with more in the pipeline. So I'm delighted last year to sign Strategic Place Partnership with Homes England to see 40,000 new homes developed in West Yorkshire over the next decade. I'm pleased to see work happening already to develop plans across the region to turn these homes into reality. But we have to do more, which is why we've developed the West Yorkshire Housing Strategy. And this is for approval. It's a comprehensive document developed with council partners and reflects our commitment to shaping the future of housing in our region, aligning with our wider goals of inclusive growth, sustainability and community well-being. And can I thank the Place Regeneration and Housing Committee who've steered this work, ready for approval today. And back over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Mayor. You set out the vision for what we've tried to achieve through this document, and as you say, we've worked really closely in partnership with West Yorkshire Housing Partnership, with Homes England, with our district partners who've all fed in, and we did a public consultation as well. Part of the reason for having a housing strategy, we are not trying to duplicate what happens at a local authority level, where you all have statutory plans yourselves, but we're really trying to add value with this document and looking at the kind of regional opportunities and challenges, being able to create the case for change, the case for greater funding, for some of the challenges that this document rightly points out, and there are challenges, I don't think we shy away from those, but greater funding for the flexibility that we've called for from government in the past, and obviously the link to level 4 devolution. We think having this strategy gives us that base to be able to continue those conversations with confidence, because it gives us that regional evidence base about the challenges and opportunities, but also really links into those local priorities that we've talked extensively to your teams about, and gives it hopefully that spatial element about where we are wanting to work on those strategically important places in each of the areas. And I'll pause there for questions. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions on the housing strategy? No? Thank you so much. Are we happy to approve the West Yorkshire Housing Strategy 2040 with any final amendments delegated to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself as Mayor? We are. Thank you so much. So moving on to the rail strategy, which is an update on the outcome of the public consultation regarding our rail strategy. I've discussed here on a number of occasions over the last 3 years my disappointment in the decisions this government has made on rail investment. I do not need to remind any colleagues in this room the consequence of the decisions of the Integrated Rail Plan, which cancelled plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail in full and the eastern leg of HS2, all before the decision to cancel HS2 to the north completely last autumn. However, there are some positives. Investment in Trans-Pennine Route upgrade is welcome and necessary. Obviously, there's an inconvenience for me in my daily commute, but it will definitely be better when this is completed. The new station in Bradford with a link to Huddersfield, really welcomed by all of us, and I know that Councillor Hinchcliffe has got to go and meet the Minister to discuss this in more detail in Bradford. But these commitments are not enough to deliver the ambitions we have for our region, and will not support the needs of our economy or our commitment to decarbonisation. And Councillor Lewis and myself recently wrote to the Prime Minister, set out the importance of the T-shaped station in Leeds and keeping the safeguarding around Leeds Station, the expansion of which is vital, not only to Leeds or West Yorkshire, but the whole of the north. This strategy forms part of our plan for a fully integrated transport system that's fit for the 21st century. It will help ensure government share our ambitions for our region and fully understand what investment West Yorkshire needs if we are to succeed. So if I may pass over to Councillor Hinchcliffe and then over to Simon.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, there's lots in here to recommend it. Obviously, a lot of us will recognise our priorities in this strategy. Of course, from myself, obviously the new station, the city centre of Bradford, which really welcomed the announcement about connecting to Huddersfield. So that is good news. I think it's also important for us just to emphasise, as you said, Mayor, about the Leeds T-shaped station. I believe it's a sort of a crucial decision-making time for government, really. Unless Leeds Station has increased capacity, all the improvements we're talking about for our own districts won't have the benefit that we need them to have. So it's integral to everything that we're trying to do here. So just a plea, really, that's really important for us.
Thank you. And I may, if I may, Simon, come to Councillor Lewis beforehand, just to reiterate our commitment to Leeds City Station and our region, but also the letter that we sent to the government to ensure that they're aware of how important that T-shaped station is.
Thank you. Just to add on the point around the safeguarded land, Leeds Station is full. The site is very constrained with existing and future development. The safeguarded land is the only realistic option for large-scale changes to Leeds Station. We know passenger numbers are much higher than they were 20 years ago. With projected demand going even higher, we need to have a proper plan about how the busiest station in the north of England, in the biggest city with only one rail station, is going to have a proper plan for enhanced rail in the future. And the safeguarded land is so important on that, otherwise the DfT could be making a decision which constrains rail services, not just for Leeds, of course. Actually, once you get out of Leeds city centre, Leeds is not particularly well served by heavy rail, but also for the whole north of England and the country. Leeds Station is the biggest source of delays for services right across the north and for services as far north as Edinburgh and far south as Bristol. So it is so important to get Leeds Station right. Without if the safeguarded land is lost, it shuts down so many opportunities, and there will be so many trade-offs between existing services, new services, onward travel, bus connectivity, pick-up, drop-off and things like that. I'll leave it there, Mayor. I know we're trying to run this meeting like good public transport to time, but it is, I can't underestimate how important it is not to jump to decisions around Leeds Station.
Thank you so much. Simon, do you want to just talk us through that? And if I may then come to Councillor Dacre regarding Colsdale. Simon.
Thank you, Matt. And I think between yourself, Councillor Hinchcliffe and Councillor Lewis, you've already set out much of the critical content of the rail strategy document, and we're really pleased to be able to bring forward this final draft for approval. I think the one other element that I would stress alongside the absolutely critical points that have been raised in terms of the Bradford hub and the Leeds hub is the rail strategy seeks to set out just how critically important our local rail lines are across West Yorkshire. Councillor Hinchcliffe made the point earlier that the rail system at the moment is the closest that we have to a mass transit system in West Yorkshire, and the level of growth of travel into Leeds Station in particular is a real testament to just how important it is to the economy. So very pleased that we can bring this forward and then have a very, very clear statement of priorities that we can impress on both Network Rail and DFT.
Thank you so much. Councillor Dacre.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so we're really pleased to see that the programme includes electrification of the Calder Valley line, and I wouldn't be let off the train in Halifax by my officers if I didn't say that they consider the case for the business case for that to be stronger than that for the Harrogate line. Also, just to say that again, the improvements to Leeds and Bradford are absolutely essential to Calderdale, because it just impacts on us all the time as we are trying to travel about. And finally, I note that WIC is currently developing the freight strategy. Freight is very important on the Calder Valley line again, and that's something we really have to get to grips with in the decarbonisation and that element of freight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further comments? Happy to approve the Rail Strategy Executive Summary and the full document as the rail policy for West Yorkshire, noting the outcome of the public consultation. Happy to approve. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 10, local transport plan. Loads of transport papers on the agenda, buses, mass transit and rail. This plan brings it all together, outlining the public engagement we will need to do on the new West Yorkshire Local Transport Plan. The previous plan was, it felt like a different era, 2017. A lot's happened since then, has changed the way people and businesses use transport. So we'll need to update our plan, not just to make it relevant to the present day, but to respond to the challenges we see coming down the line over the coming 15 years. So may I hand over to Councillor Hinchcliffe and then over to Simon.
Thank you. Yes, this is a really essential piece of work for everything we've been talking about and going forward. It's worth noting as well that all the districts are also feeding into this with their own plans. It's important that it all works together as one whole. So I'll hand over to Simon.
Thank you. Again, I think that very little more to add. What we're looking to focus on in particular is to make sure that as we present a strategy for a future transport network in West Yorkshire, that we set it out in a very spatial form. And by that, what I mean is that everybody can understand what does this mean for the different parts of West Yorkshire, and does this come together well as a coherent network, and that's what we're proposing to engage on this summer.
Thank you. So are we happy as a committee to approve? Sorry, Councillor Lamb.
So no, it's fine. It's just one point on this which just follows on from what Simon just said. It probably won't surprise you. Not everybody feels included in the transport plan for West Yorkshire. As you know, I'm grateful for the work we're doing in my area to try and bring some improvements forward, but it is missing things off the map wasn't helpful. But equally, I think it's crucial that everybody in West Yorkshire knows this transport plan is for them, and there is a clear plan for every part, and picking up on the cross-boundary issues that we talked about earlier, that it's addressing those, and the world doesn't start and end at the West Yorkshire boundary, and we need to make sure we've got good continuation. And I'm sure you'll have another comment at me that how we can deal with that much better now, but it's just really important that all communities are feeling the benefit and know this is for them.
And Councillor Lamb, I absolutely see the opportunity, particularly having a new mayoral combined authority in North Yorkshire. We already have great relationships in South Yorkshire. I'm hoping that the mayors actually in Yorkshire can work very closely together, that it's not just, as you say, one little silo, that actually that connectivity is across the whole of Yorkshire. So noted, thank you so much. Are we happy to approve the 8-week public engagement to commence in June on the proposed vision, objectives and approach of the West Yorkshire Local Transport Plan, and that the finalisation of the engagement documents delegated to the Executive Director for Transport post input from the Transport Committee in May? We're happy to approve. Thank you all so much, team. Thank you. So moving on to item 11, economic strategy. This is the economic strategy for our region, providing an update on the development. The team have collated and assessed a wide range of evidence, working with council partners to interpret it, and we've engaged stakeholders across the region to assess the evidence and develop a set of actions. And earlier this week, I welcomed a panel of independent external experts to provide feedback and challenge on our evidence base, and we've had fantastic input and discussion with our wider committees and groups. But first, if I could hand over to Councillor James Lewis, Chair of the Business Committee, and then over to Felix Kumi Ampofo, our Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture. So, James.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have a lot to say on this paper, but it really sort of sets out the progress that we have been making and the engagement that's been going on. We had a great round table with the committee this week, looking at some of the issues, not coming with a paper with recommendations or a set of papers with recommendations, but having a really good discussion around some of the issues we need to take forward. So it is a good piece of work. Look forward to the final strategy coming forward.
Thank you. Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. As has already been said, the work on the economic strategy is underway, and as we know with these things, you always start with the evidence to make sure you have a good understanding of your strengths, where your weaknesses are, what the challenges look like, and where the opportunities could come from. So where we are right now in the process is we are at the end of the evidence gathering phase and the assessment of that evidence. And as the Mayor said, we've assessed that, we've had it challenged, and hopefully within the next day or two, we will publish all that evidence that we've gathered. There's a fair bit of work still underway, and as they become ready, we will publish that too. There's still a lot more work to do on that front. We will then move on from here to begin to work through the conclusions we've drawn, what those mean in terms of our priorities and our actions, and how we will then work together to deliver those. And as part of that, we need to make sure we have an agreement on what the key outcomes are and what the indicators we will use to be able to identify or confirm whether we've been successful or not. The paper sets out really in three broad headline areas where the challenges are coming from in terms of opportunity, access to opportunity, which usually is around skills, its attainment and its utilization, around poverty, deprivation, health inequalities, and also productivity and the challenges around that. But the evidence, when members have looked at that, hopefully will show also that West Yorkshire has a lot of strengths, a lot of opportunities, and that's where we're looking to focus now to be able to write a strategy that makes good takes advantage of that. So for the sake of time, I will leave it there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Felix. And I was very excited to see the clustering, the Venn diagram, the engineers are at the heart of that diagram. And whether that's engineering in digital or whether that's manufacturing, it's a really important focus for us. So any thoughts on the economic strategy? Councillor Galton.
Thanks, Mayor. It's a very, information-rich document, and I think it's very good at analysing what the challenges are for business in West Yorkshire, and that was one of the areas that I just wanted to raise as an issue, because it felt like the economic strategy was really a business support strategy, and I appreciate that the private sector is the one that delivers a high number of jobs in the general economy, but one of the things that is recognised is that economies further north you get tend to have a much higher level of public sector employment as well, which have a really big impact on all our local economies and all the different communities that we live in. And one of the things that I wanted to see addressed potentially is, for instance, the care sector, because that's obviously going to be a growth industry in the future. It's not always going to be delivered by big business, and in fact, when it is delivered by big business, it can be a very high cost for local authorities and therefore local taxpayers. And it would be nice to see where that sector fits in to the clusters that are mentioned here, because I don't see it recognised in any of them. Whenever we talk about health, it tends to be about health tech and the jobs that are available in that, but not in terms of the jobs which are delivered within our communities themselves. So I'd just like to see that developed as the economic strategy goes forward.
So, very good point. Felix? We'll take that away. Thank you so much, Councillor Galton. Good stuff. Any further comments on the economic strategy? Councillor Dacre?
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, the report does touch on the importance of infrastructure and connectivity, and just to say that, just remind everyone that particularly for Calderdale, and I think to some extent for Kirklees, digital connectivity in some of the rural areas is still a really big issue, and without the infrastructure it's hard to take advantage of the plans and the strategy. So just want to bear that in mind, please.
Thank you. Maybe drill down into where those cold spots are and whether that's impacting on their economy, etc. I'm sure that's covered already. It is, of course it is. Thank you so much. Happy to note the progress update of the development of the new economic strategy for West Yorkshire. We are. Thank you so much. So,
can I just give
please,
my
yes, Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Sorry if I could just give my apologies that I have to leave the meeting early, but I just want to go without saying thank you very much to the Combined Authority for the significant investment you're planning to make today in the City of Culture for Bradford 2025. As you know, you were there yesterday yourself, Arts Council visited Bradford and were very impressed by all the work that's happening there. So it's really wonderful to see that, and thank you very much really for the support and obviously investment that the Combined Authority are discussing today. So I just want to give my support for that, but unfortunately I won't be here for the actual item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hinchcliffe. It's a privilege to be the Mayor leading up to the Bradford City of Culture. So thank you for that. So let's move on to item 12, working towards a child-first approach in the Combined Authority. I'm really excited by this paper. It seeks endorsement for adopting a child-first approach within the CA and initiating the development of a framework and a charter. And these initiatives will be co-produced with children in West Yorkshire to ensure their voices shape our future endeavours. And it's aligned to the vision of a brighter West Yorkshire outlined in the West Yorkshire Plan, emphasises collaboration with children to achieve shared goals. They are our future and we need to listen to them. Examples of best practice from various councils underscores the importance of integrating children's voices across different sectors. Can I hand over to Liz to just talk us through the details of the report?
Thank you very much, Mayor. As you rightly say, this is about how we can bring children very much to the forefront of our considerations when we're thinking and developing our policies, projects, interventions, etc. We completely recognise there's some really great work happening at district level, and we also have some examples within the Combined Authority that we've put into the report already. But as always, we can do more, and so we're looking basically, as you've already said, to develop a framework and a charter with children, to ask them how they want to be engaged, how they want to work with us. And we've set out a few things towards the end of the paper about the things that we think we ought to be doing, but we want to test those with children. So we're looking today for your endorsement for us to carry on with this piece of work and to develop the charter and the framework.
Thank you very much, Liz. And certainly the young people and children that attended Convention of the North blew everybody away, that they were so articulate and a great challenge to leaders. Are we happy to approve a child-first approach? We have a couple of questions. Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was really pleased to see this report. The child-friendly journey in Leeds has been ongoing since 2010, which myself, Councillor Galton and Councillor Lewis have all been involved with in different ways. As you said, the decisions we make will disproportionately affect children and young people across the region, and it's important that their voice is captured. The point I want to add, I was the chair of Children and Family Scrutiny in Leeds for 5 years, and we did a piece of work about child-friendly about 5 years ago, and it'd be well worth having a look at the conclusion. The big thing, while we'd made good progress in Leeds, the big missing bit was making this an issue for everybody, which I feel this is what this is trying to do. So it's a challenge of mindset for people in Simon's team to really think about how to capture children's voices. The big example I was giving around planning and development, where it's seen as a thing for grown-ups. When we have our planning inspectorates, it's notable to me there aren't children at the table and young people giving their voices, despite the fact we're planning the homes up to 2040 and beyond that will be for them. So it really is important that we do this, but there is good learning around, and many of us keen to help with this, because it makes our policy making more powerful. And having done lots of sessions, as part of our scrutiny inquiry, we did some big sessions with young people, and they ask all the right questions, and they're not shy to ask them, and it helps to make better policy by involving them at every stage in the process. So the key is, it isn't just a token thing that we do, that actually we genuinely embed the voice of children and young people into every decision that we make.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. We'll definitely do that. And certainly the voices of young women in our research for safer parks has meant that the design of parks, hopefully across the country, the needs of young women won't be an afterthought. So we absolutely need them around the table right at the beginning. I had Councillor Sylvia Dacre. No? Somebody from this side? Oh, no, it's fine. Mandy.
I really like this report. I think it's a great opportunity to put children at the heart of everything. I would like to think that we start to use reading age as a metric of how well we are improving things for children. I don't know that we use that currently. We may well do, but other county or other regions do. And I think it's a really good measure to see what our outcomes are starting to change.
It's a great suggestion. We'll take that away, and thank you for your contributions. Are we happy to approve the Child First approach through further engagement with children in the development of the framework and the Charter? We are all happy to approve. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 13A, project approvals, investment zone programme approvals. This is the first report on projects in relation to the investment zone, which was confirmed by the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Michael Gove, at Convention of the North, creating jobs and opportunities in Leeds, Huddersfield and Bradford. It's been developed collaboratively with our councils and universities. Thank you for the joint work. If I could come to Councillor Lewis on this item, and then to Liz.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm really excited by this. It's been a real opportunity around a couple of sectors we know are strong in terms of economic growth. Over time, we've had really strong engagement between combined authority, the councils, the universities. They've been really crucial partners here. I know there's nobody here from the universities, but I think it's worth recognising their role and the strength of having so many really good universities in West Yorkshire. Should be something we can lever into as we look about how we increase and strengthen productivity in our economy. So that's been a great piece of work. The funding is very welcome and the commitment, so we can actually get on with it, and I really look forward to working with everybody on delivering this. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
Thank you. So just about definitely on the universities, they have been co-signed. It was a requirement of government to do that, but I think that's really been helpful in terms of that working relationship with the universities. We've already talked earlier about kind of sectors, so health tech and digital tech are our two clusters, and we had 5 to choose from. We tried to persuade government that one wasn't enough for West Yorkshire. We needed at least 2 of them, so really pleased that we managed to convince government of that. For us, it is a mixture of revenue and capital. There's 80 million over the first 5 years, with 80 million for a second 5 years. What we're asking for today is to start the development. So teams across districts are already working really hard, but this asks for 6.4 million to continue the development work across ourselves and partners to get this moving. We have not quite finalised all the final hurdles with government to kind of have the money in the door, but we're really close. So we're asking for your agreement that we continue at risk, but at risk with a hopefully with a fair degree of certainty, given, as you rightly said at the start, Mayor, that the Secretary of State announced this at the Convention of the North. And then just one other thing to mention, in this paper there is also a change request around Enterprise West Yorkshire for an extension to the time frame to 2025. So just want to make sure that we capture that also in people's asking for approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the investment zones? It's a great opportunity for our region. Great stuff. So happy to approve and also the change request. Thank you so much. Moving on to another project approval, which is creating great places and accelerated infrastructure. Oh, sorry, one second. Just let's move on to the next item, which is the local nature recovery strategy, creating great places, as I said. And I pledge to tackle the climate environment emergency, restoring nature, biodiversity, and wildlife habitats at the heart of that ambition. This next report outlines our proposed approach to creating West Yorkshire's first local nature recovery strategy. So if I can pass over again to Liz, just to talk us through maybe the headlines.
Thank you. So this again is development money to actually develop the strategy. We'll be working with the Climate and Environment Committee to do this. We are doing this on behalf of each of the West Yorkshire districts, and as you can see from the paper, we have funding from government to do so. We've topped it up with some of our own in order to be able to bring forward the strategy, map areas of protected and important areas of biodiversity, really use data and consultation and engagement with landowners and others through this process, and obviously we'll keep the Combined Authority up to date as we go through the intent.
Thank you so much. Any comments? No, happy to approve the scheme delivery to commence and for full approval of the Combined Authority's funding contribution as you see the recommendations are set out. All happy to approve? Good, thank you so much. Moving on to Better Homes Hub. This links to our earlier discussion about the Better Homes Hub, and it seeks funding for further demonstrator project in Leeds, testing retrofitting of back-to-back homes, which will help inform our future interventions through the Better Homes Hub. And you'll remember we approved the first demonstrator in Calderdale, and I'm pleased to see the next one come forward. Work continues with all of our local authority partners to bring forward similar proposals in their areas. Liz.
Thank you very much. So just to add that this is in two parts. So for the Leeds area-based scheme, there's a part one which we're asking for the contribution today. Part of the innovation here is about how different funding pots can actually come together in one place, which is not always easy to do. And then we're also looking for a kind of part two development cost, and that is thinking about how we can use low carbon technology such as a heat source pump at a kind of a street level. So all we're looking for today is the part one, which is the 1.7 million, and then development costs and a further pot for evaluation at 240k. So those are the two requests for today. Thank you.
It's such good and important work. Do we have any comments on this? Happy to approve the change request, the scheme delivery to commence, and for full approval of the Combined Authority's funding contribution. The detailed recommendations, as I said, are set out in the programme. Thank you. So moving on to, if I may, moving on beyond into the, excuse me one second. Thank you so much. Thank you. This next approval is about our latest investment in culture and creative industries. The first item for approval is 500,000 to continue with West Yorkshire Local Visitor Economy Partnership. As you know, it's a collaboration between the 5 West Yorkshire councils and the CA, working together to drive forward management and growth of the local visitor economy. And the scheme's going to support the implementation of a destination management plan, which will seek to attract more visitors and tourists to the region. The second approval in the paper, as Councillor Hinchcliffe referred to, is our commitment to support the delivery of Bradford City of Culture 2025. What a great year it's going to be. I'm so excited about what's being planned. The proposal is for the CA to fund £5.7 million to support the year-long programme of cultural events, festivals and celebrations, bearing in mind this is a small amount in comparison to the funding that has been coalesced around the the City of Culture. It's going to bring local and global audiences to Bradford and West Yorkshire. As well as cultural impacts, the year will provide significant economic growth to the region and surrounding areas, while showcasing West Yorkshire's dynamic creative industries and heritage. And then the final approval in the paper is for the delegation of approvals of the British Library North scheme to the Place Regeneration and Housing Committee in future. And I was delighted that the project was awarded another £10 million from government, and also delighted, I may say, that the National Poetry Centre was also awarded £5 million, which just shows that West Yorkshire is definitely on the map when it comes to culture. So may I pass over to Felix?
Thank you very much, Mayor. You've said it all. The paper sets out sort of has three recommendations, and with Bradford City of Culture, UK City of Culture, the launch planned in the autumn of this year, our contribution, which will come up to £6 million with 300,000 that was approved a few months ago, will be part of the over £40 million that is being pulled together to deliver this incredible year of culture. It builds on the years of culture that we've had in Leeds and in Kirklees, and we're now having in Wakefield and Calderdale. So hopefully members are happy to approve that. The Vista Economy Partnership is a national initiative. The Combined Authorities already approved the setting up of this partnership. The Mayor chairs the partnership board, and this is seeking the revenue funding needed. Leeds City Council is leading the work with the infrastructure it already has on behalf of all the other local authorities, and this funding will allow us to be able to get the work that has been set out in the plan and promised to government to get underway. And you've already mentioned the British Library investment. Government has said, made it clear to us the investment, the £10 million will come via the Combined Authority, and we'll work with the British Library, just like the Poetry Centre, to work through the business case and all the technical aspects. What we're seeking here is a delegation to the Place Committee to look through the capital works, and the Culture Committee will work with partners on the content. So that's what we're seeking. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. And questions or comments? Councillor Lamb, Councillor Paulson.
It's just a quick comment. So 13E1, absolutely welcome that. 13E3, wholeheartedly welcome that. 13E2, just so it's recorded, I don't support that recommendation. My view is these things can and should be delivered without putting pressure on the taxpayer, and I think Bradford could use some money in much better ways at the minute. We've seen from the example of Leeds, I perhaps don't share your view on this, that it was not a success, the Year of Culture, and it could have been better, and it could have been delivered without putting pressure on the taxpayer. So I don't support 13E2.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. And as Chair of the Culture Committee, you won't be surprised to know that I disagree with your assessment of what did work. And I was yesterday at Bradford University as part of Spirit 2012, how we assess the outcomes of culture and the impact on not just on well-being, but also on skills, on jobs, on sense of place and belonging and regeneration. And I think the public sector has a role to play there. So you won't be surprised that I disagree with those comments. Councillor Paulson.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just on the funding, well, which will be a total of £6 million for City of Culture. Obviously, thank the Combined Authority, hopefully that will approve this funding, and really hope that it will benefit the whole of the Bradford district. There are concerns that sometimes things are far too city-centric, and we are a very wide-ranging rural district. And we are waiting to hear, maybe you have inside information over what the programme will involve, but we are waiting to hear the programme, and we hope it will roll out across and benefit everybody across the district going forward. So thank you in advance for the support.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. And just to reiterate my commitment to investment from the Combined Authority to years of culture, that it is important that they are attractive not just to the rural areas of Bradford, but to the people of West Yorkshire. And that's why it's important we get transport right, because people can't get to these great events if the transport doesn't work. So thank you for your support. Councillor Galton.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to pick up from Councillor Lamb's comments about Leeds 2023. As I said, the legacy of it is something which is disputed, and I would expect that the combined authority would also be closely following the evaluation of the Year of Culture in terms of how it commits its own resources to further cultural events. I have to say, though, from what I have seen around how Bradford Year of Culture is being organised, it's being done so on a completely different premise. And there has been a lot of care taken to ensure that there is significant legacy and capital investment in the cultural infrastructure to correspond with the activities which will take part during that year. And I think it will benefit from being associated with an official vehicle in terms of the City of Culture model. So I would support you in supporting the City of Culture of Bradford.
Thank you. And if I may just say that one of the, off the top of my head, one of the outcomes from the Wow Barn, which was a specific project that the CA funded, was a spike in women applying to the College of Construction, which surely Councillor Lamb would applaud. Women are often outside of construction in plumbing and carpentry, etc. And also it was the inspiration for the development of the Women of West Yorkshire Network, which is currently over 400 members, bringing women together to support careers advice, skills, tackle climate emergency, and so on. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, well, I'll accept the invitation to comment. And wholeheartedly, I'm not saying these things are bad. I'm saying the point of principle is all of the cost, and so much of the cost shouldn't fall on the taxpayer. There's lots of benefits to be had from promoting culture, and one of the concerns and learning from Leeds is the council have cancelled culture that people enjoy every year to try and fund one-off things that they could enjoy once. And that's a real shame. So hopefully Bradford will learn the lessons and do something better and focus on the legacy.
Your points are noted. Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Are we happy to approve the funding for delivery of these schemes, to commence and full approval of the combined authorities' funding contributions? The detailed recommendations you'll see in the report. Happy to approve. Thank you so much. Okie dokie. Moving swiftly on to the scrutiny protocol. And Councillor, you have been very patient. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Scrutiny Members' Report, which makes recommendations to the authority as to the implementation of the government's new scrutiny protocol. It goes on to seek early comments on a draft scrutiny vision for the combined authority and to seek agreement to a proposed committee structure to be implemented from the new municipal year. As members will be aware, the government has made implementation of the scrutiny protocol a condition of receiving level 4 devolution. We must confirm we've implemented it by the 1st of March 2025. Scrutiny is a vitally important function, and any attempt to improve the effectiveness and strength of scrutiny should be welcomed. We need greater transparency and accountability. I attended the Corporate Scrutiny Committee meeting last week, which formally approved this Scrutiny Members' Report. That meeting allows a cross-party group of councillors from across the region to challenge me in public on achievement of my pledges and wider organisational priorities. And the wide-ranging questions covered reinforced to me the interconnectivity of issues and the benefits of a holistic scrutiny function, which this report addresses. May I welcome Councillor Barry Anderson, the Chair of the Corporate Scrutiny, to thank you for your hard work, your committee, and members of the working group for producing this report. Would you like to speak for a few moments on your working group's report and recommendations?
Thank you, Mayor. I probably couldn't put it better the way you've done it yourself, but in general terms, what I would like to say is the importance of good and excellent scrutiny, how it can add value to everything that we're doing, and also working cross-party so that everybody can feel that they've contributed to this discussion and the views that were expressed. Today's agenda is proof of the size of it, the work that you've got to do, and hopefully scrutiny can add value to moving these things forward. The Mayor herself has made the ambitions of openness, being more transparent and challenging, and I think scrutiny should be able to try and help deliver more on that. And as has been said, the most recent letter from Michael Gove tells us we've got to do it, whether we like it or not. We've basically got to do it. But the issues that we've tried to address are quorums, we have not been successful in getting enough people to come to scrutiny. So we've got to look at a new way of delivering it and delivering it to the benefit of people. We also need to try and identify more time to scrutinise and to add value. We also need to look at different types of scrutiny, not necessarily just meeting once every so often, maybe going out into the communities and hearing what people have got to say so that we can start delivering. We also need to improve the quality of scrutiny. That's not a criticism of what's gone in the past, but I think the review that you set up when you first set it up, this is the outcome of that review and we can move things forward. But it's important that we add value to the work being done by the other committees that we've got within WICA, and I would like to thank all my fellow scrutiny people for the work they did. But at the end of the day, what I want is to make WICA fit for a purpose so that we can take on even more freedoms and flexibilities in the future and deliver for everyone in West Yorkshire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I really do share your ambitions. Thank you. Alan Rees, the Chief Operating Officer, do you want to pick up any further thoughts? I think Councillor Anderson has sort of covered it.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just clarify for the committee, I'm conscious of time. Thanks to Councillor Anderson for his report. It was simply to say that what we're looking for from the Combined Authorities is agreement to the general direction of the report, so agreement that we move to a single committee structure with a pool of members, etc., and that the independent remuneration panel be convened to provide advice on remuneration for members. The plan then is for officers to bring back a report on the detail at the next meeting of the Combined Authority, which is the AGM in June.
Thank you for that clarification. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Galton. Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, Mayor. I disagree with the conclusions that have come out of this report. I think it's a retrograde step to reduce the level of formal scrutiny in a combined authority which is on the cusp of actually taking on even more responsibility. I think we should be warned by the experience that's happened in Teesside, where there needs to be a particularly intense focus on decisions which are taken at a sub-regional basis. And I think the way forward, if we want to add rigour to the scrutiny process, is perhaps for the constituent authorities to be closer aligned with the scrutiny structure that exists at the combined authority, so that they can share that scrutiny responsibility. I believe such a joint case for reviewing that is taking place for the combined authority in West Midlands, because of course they have issues with their governance as well, and the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny is overseeing that work. I would suggest that we have a similar piece of work commissioned from that organisation to look at how we can improve our scrutiny here in West Yorkshire. And I just give the example of, it is very hard to call in any decision that is taken at a West Yorkshire Combined Authority level that affects a particular local authority. And I think that kind of tension needs to be addressed as we take this scrutiny review forward.
Thank you, Councillor Galton. I will come back to you, Councillor, because in our conversations and discussions, the very fact that we are getting greater powers and responsibilities, that interconnected nature of responsibilities has better scrutiny when people have understanding of different portfolios and are not in silos. And I believe that the three committees potentially would just give you that narrow bandwidth of understanding. But Councillor Anderson, I wonder if you want to come back.
Sorry, but I don't agree back, because I do genuinely think that the way forward is to get it better structured, because we've got a number of experts in various scrutiny boards, but if we can do a lot more work through working groups, we'll be able to do that. Now, there's no reason why we couldn't work and shouldn't work with individual authorities, but at the end of the day, we need to get people who understand WICA from top to bottom, and I would argue at the moment, and I don't mean with disrespect to my fellow scrutiny members, but some of them I don't think totally understand the interconnectivity when you're talking about one thing, the effect it has on the other, and how it's important to get the budget right, to make sure that the transport can be delivered, to make sure that the employment proposals can be delivered to make sure that we can do things about the cultural offer. I think people need to learn and understand. Some people are very good at acting in their silos, but cannot often see outside of their own particular silo. And it's one thing that's struck me since I came down here after you replaced me in Leeds. I've brought down some of the skills and learnings that I took from Leeds, and hopefully as a result of that I've put my imprint on trying to move WICA forward. Was it perfect? No. Is it going to be perfect? I hope so in the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Anderson for the work he's done and the skill that he's brought to scrutiny at WICA. I think he's taken it to a new and more effective level. To respond to Councillor Galton's point, I think the quality of scrutiny is more important than the quantity of scrutiny. And I think in this instance, one board, actually it does make sense. Having that broad overview of the whole combined authority and understanding how all the bits connect together is crucial. I think one thing I would just add is the real value and power of pre-decision scrutiny and trying to make sure that's captured in the proposals as they're developed. It is incredibly powerful to have that oversight before a decision's taken, rather than just reserving it to what happens afterwards and then criticising. So I hope that's something we'll do. And there's a wider point that needs to be addressed that's perhaps been overlooked through devolution nationally and locally, that as big a supporter of devolution as I am, it's put a hugely increased pressure on elected members. Without anything corresponding, no one's going to sit with great sympathy for elected members in anything, but the role has transformed. I was first elected in 2007. The workload just in the constituent council is enormous compared to what it was then, and adding the responsibilities we've all got to the combined authority, there needs to be some thinking about how that can be practically delivered and making sure that is properly remunerated, because an awful lot of people who also need to do a job, run a business, have caring responsibilities, etc., and to be able to commit to the level and give the detail of scrutiny, for example, that we want, they need to have the ability to do that.
Thank you so much, and I do agree that we need to ensure that these opportunities are open to everybody, particularly those with caring responsibilities. Mandy.
Hi, thanks for that, Councillor Anderson. I think in West Yorkshire we're experts in textiles, and that includes warp and weft as we weave, and so as we work in vertical, scrutiny absolutely should be horizontal, otherwise we miss the gaps between the verticals. So I think it's a great move forward to do that.
Weft and weave. I need the T-shirt with that on, thank you. So can we move to approvals for the proposal to adopt a scrutiny protocol compliant single committee structure from 24-25 municipal year to be confirmed at the annual meeting following assessment of the IRP, to the councillor's point, and the more detailed report proposing how the recommendations will be implemented over the next 12 months. Happy to approve? Thank you so much. So moving on, if I could just ask for your patience, we will probably overrun 5 more minutes as we just canter through the last items. Item 15, Corporate Plan 24-25. This outlines the initial high-level draft of our corporate plan for review and feedback. It outlines our strategic priorities for the upcoming year, building upon the budget and business plans approved by the CA 1st of February 24. Very much work in progress, as our first draft will be important to bring to you today so you can see the approach we're taking. If I may hand over to Ben to talk us through the report.
Mayor, given the time, I don't propose to say anything more than you have said, only to say that we will obviously be revising the corporate plan in the light of the decisions taken this morning and bringing back a final version to the June meeting of the Combined Authority, and ideally we will be sharing a revised draft in the intervening time.
Thank you. Any comments on the corporate plan? We're happy to approve the approach to the development of the corporate plan 24-25. We are. Thank you so much. Nearly there, folks. Item 16, corporate delegations. The final report proposes granting a time-limited delegation to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself and the Mayor post the 2nd of May, and with engagement with the Combined Authority members to enable him to progress any changes to director-level structure and associated recruitment in the period between now and the next meeting of the Authority in June. This will ensure there's no delay in the delivery of the authority's priorities. Can I hand back over to Ben to talk us through the details?
Thank you, Chair. Again, not much to add to what you have said. Again, we will need to look at this in the light of the decisions taken this morning, and as the paper says, we will engage with you on any proposals that we're looking to take forward over the next during the pre-election period. Thank you.
Any comments? Thank you. Are we happy to approve granting the Chief Executive time-limited authority in consultation with me as Mayor to create or adjust director-level positions and appointments until the next meeting of the CA, 20th of June? Happy to approve. Thank you so much. This brings this epic and historic meeting to a close. And when your grandchildren are jumping on a franchise bus that links with mass transit, you will be able to say, I was at that meeting and I was part of that new journey, that brighter West Yorkshire that we all hope for. So thank you again, if I may personally, for the collaboration, the kindness, the support, the guidance that you have given to me over the last 3 years as your Mayor. And I really, really hope to see you all again after the Mayor election. Thank you. So minutes for meeting, thank you very much for the attendance. And just to end, remind members of the date of the next meeting, 20th of June, which will be the AGM. Thank you all so much, and have a good rest of your day.